audio.
Okay.
But,
My hands are freezing. Cold.
And then the hallway, but I went to the neighbor, oh, this is not so bad.
Yeah.
It's like the hallway.
Yeah.
and so we had a violation. Oh, he didn't check through, so we put it on. Okay, then you're,
Okay. 6 o'clock. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. And starting out, Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Nguyen, would you please lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve it?
I move we approve the agenda.
And a second? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, the next would be the approval of the minutes for, I guess we have 3 previous meetings. So again, if there's a motion to approve those.
So move.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, all in favor, or is any discussion? No? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and the minutes are approved. Moving on to informational reports, and starting with Dr. J.
All right. Welcome, everyone, governing board guests, for being here tonight. I want to start with a special recognition. We have a new doctor in the house. So Dr. Evelyn Nguyen has been working on her dissertation and completing all the requirements for the doctoral degree since I've been back. And we've had conversations throughout, and it's quite an accomplishment. And for a lot of people, they don't realize how much time you have to sacrifice from other social events or other things that other people get to do, that you're staying home and working on research and making sure it gets done. So it's a huge accomplishment for her to complete it. It's a testament to lifelong learning and her being a good example to our kids that, when you work hard, good things happen. So I just want to have her stand and be recognized for her amazing accomplishment. Dr. Nguyen has games going on, so she is excused to go, but I just wanted her.
Thank you. Congratulations, Evelyn.
Yes. We also sent some out to the whole community to make sure that they knew that she had accomplished that. I want to give a shout out to the Diane Blaha of the Verdes Community Christmas Project. They had given a donation to the Second Chance store of $5,000. And for anyone that's unaware of that, you can stop by and see the Second Chance store with Steph Beck, our receptionist at the middle school and district office. It's been a dream of hers to do, and it is a fantastic project. And she's taken it to a whole nother level and become a model of what that kind of a store can look like in a school. So we're really excited about that. We had the MMES cheer perform for the first time at the basketball games on Friday, the 31st. So during the varsity boys game, in front of a very large crowd, they came out and did their first cheer that I'm aware of in public, and it was absolutely fantastic. They did even little pyramids and had great. They synced well. They just had their routine down, and it was high level. So special thanks to Lavona Montgomery and Lizzie Cooper, the 2 coaches that are working on that. I think it's really essential to build school spirit to start at a young age. So it was something that I spoke to Ms. Reichler about and trying to get some kind of cheer team down there, and the two staff members have really taken it to the next level. They had uniforms, pom-poms. It was great. They did a great job. So we're really proud of them. We also had honors and gifted nights. I hosted 4. One at Fort McDowell, one at McDowell Mountain, one at Fountain Hills Middle School, and one at Fountain Hills High School, and showed our parents the pathway that we currently have for honors and gifted, including the 1 year of Arizona State credits kids can earn in our district at no charge to them in high school. We took some time at the elementary to talk about what pathway they'd like to see with scheduling next year, and the group kind of landed on, let's start with accelerated math. And so we are working with Ms. Reichler on putting that together. Also, the preschool had their 100-day can drive, and they raised over 200 cans of food over at Little Falcons Preschool, and it's a big celebration of them on the 100th day of student attendance. So really, really excited for our district, and with that, I conclude my comments.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Jane? Okay, moving on to governing board reports. Mr. Henley, would you like to start?
Starting off with going to the high school lecture hall. It's a scholarship application season for the Golden Eagle Education Foundation. So it was a really good mandatory turnout by all the seniors, and there are over 30 scholarships available. There are over 30 scholarships available, and about $65,000 that the community has donated to go towards this. So they're in the process right now. Went to the Builders Club. They're working on, that's at the middle school. It's a Kiwanis Club. It's a service leadership program, and working with the students on getting ready for a fundraiser, and the funds will go back into the school system for the Super Pancake Breakfast coming up on Sunday. So everybody's invited to come to that on 9 to 12 in the Kiwanis building on Kiwanis Drive, and eat yourself some good pancakes and wear your colors. Attended the coalition board meeting. They gave an update on the survey that they took, and they're talking about some planning events for the next coming year. And then did attend the McDowell Mountain Elementary School Site Council meeting. And that was really good to hear the exchange with the teachers and the folks that were there, and part of their description of the Site Council in the meeting minutes. And so it was a good event to attend. And then the East Valley School Board Consortium. Seems like a lot of locations are going through some budget churn right now, and because of student reductions. So it was interesting to hear some of the comments that are very similar to ours, and some of that are vastly different just because of the size of the communities out there. And just because we have a band director that's for the Fountain Hills Community Band, he's also the head of the music for all of Mesa Public Schools. And he came to us and talked last night when we had a rehearsal about the issues that they're having on budget reduction. They were going to eliminate the entire music program for the elementary students, and they pushed it out for a year. So he has another job for a year. Went to East Valley School Board Construction. Mesa budget. That looks like it's about it. There were a few activities.
That's a lot. Okay. Mrs. Duckworth, you want to continue?
Thank you. Let me get my notes, which I put on my phone.
Okay.
Okay, since the last time we got to do reports, I attended the Feathers and Flapjacks PTO 5K fun run that was at our elementary school, and that was great. I did not actually run the 5K. I walked it and drank coffee with my friend, but it was really fun to support, and I know Lillian was there as well. So that was a great event, and thank you to the PTO for putting on that event and that fundraiser. I also attended on January 30th the parent night that Dr. Kane and Principal Reichler did at the elementary school. Part of the reason why I attended was I meant to attend the middle school one, but I wasn't able to. And so Dr. J invited me to join that night, and that was great. It was great to hear Dr. J talk about the portrait of a graduate to the parents of elementary school students, and what our program is, and how can we start to extend some of the things that we're doing in the middle school and high school into the elementary school. So really enjoyed participating in that night with all the parents that were there. I want to make one other comment. I want to clarify one of my comments that's in the meeting notes in regards to pickleball, when we had the pickleball come and present to us. When I spoke about that I would be against extending anything, in my head, what I meant was extending into the outdoor spaces that our middle school students have access to. In other words, I would be against building any more courts on our middle school property, but I am not against extending the agreement with pickleball to say 4 or 5 years. So I just wanted to clarify that and get that on the record. And then the last thing I want to talk about is that we have an elementary school district in our valley that recently went bankrupt. And there's been a lot of chaos around that in the legislature. And House Education Chair Matt Gress made a statement, and I just want to read that statement so that we all understand as governing board members, where our responsibilities lie. So he said, and I quote, "Board members have been fed a myth that you are supposed to let administrators run the school district, that your only job is policy. So don't get involved with budget or personnel. Leave it up to the administrators. That's a fairy tale. You have fiduciary duties. You are a check and balance on the administrators." So I just wanted to bring that up to just say that while I do believe the majority of our work on the board is setting policy, there is a place where we act as a check and balance in terms of budgets and curriculum and those items that are going on in our schools and in our district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Reed?
Well, of course, I'm going to speak about the PBIS store because that's one of the highlights of my week every time I get to go. And I wanted to mention a few people that have donated some items. The first one being Jim Paulson, who no longer even has kids in our district, but still has made donations more than once, just knowing the things that the kids are looking for. And then there's a sweet woman who sells handmade soaps at the farmer's market. And she donated a ton of beautiful soaps for both the Mother's Day, when I started putting Mother's Day things out, and then did it again for Christmas, and then did it again for the upcoming Valentine's Day and stuff, since I try to do little things that the kids can buy for others. And then our PTO donated a ton of things from their holiday pop-up shop, which for those of you that don't know about the PBIS store, it's a way for kids to earn points that then they get to go and spend as a reward for getting homework done or for good behavior, helping out a friend or whatever it is. And it's really neat to see these kids budget and buy these things or buy things for others especially. And then shout out to whoever the anonymous PBIS fairy is. There's been several Target bags just dropped off in there when I've shown up. And I appreciate the people in the community that donate, because that really helps things go and move. And then my kids and I were able to go to the Presby Pickens market, which we always love attending. We get to see so many community members. And I did speak with them a little bit again about the potential of our 5th grade maybe fundraising with them. And Sean Uphoff, who everybody knows because she's very involved with our school as well, made sure to let me know that they'd be happy to help with the elementary school clubs when it comes to fundraising with those spots and stuff. And then I was able to listen to the Coffee with Kane yesterday, and I loved the discussion that took place both around like the social media and things like that. I think that there is a solution as far as like marketing that way. I've talked about maybe having a social media club, which I know can get a little bit messy, but I do think there are ways to get that done and keep it a safe club where things won't be posted that shouldn't be and things like that. The other thing I thought was a journalism club, which could be really fun at all levels. I mean, we even have George who works with us now, who works with the newspaper and stuff like that and has experience there. And I had brought those little pamphlets one time where you can even get little printables, like brochures or magazines or newspapers. And I think, I mean, even as a parent who doesn't have my kids enrolled in our district right now, I would absolutely subscribe to the elementary Falcon paper if they had one. I think that a lot of community members would as well. I loved the mention of a field day. I think activities like that are awesome for our students. And then I loved the discussion around phones. And I got the book, The Anxious Generation, and I'm a slow reader now as a mom. It's hard to find time to read all the time, but I did start it, and there were a couple things in here that I thought were really important, because you've mentioned this book multiple times, and it does highlight how drastic the changes are in the behaviors we see from our kids because of the disconnect that they have. And one of the things that I've loved, it's reinforced just in the few chapters I've read, is a play-based childhood versus a phone-based childhood. And how children need a great deal of free time to thrive. It talked about how the change in their social dynamic, now everything social has moved to online, and it's actually a disconnect, right? It's not social at all. And so just from reading this, I was kind of questioning where our stewardship is as public education, because in the end, we do not take the place of parents. However, I think that the important question is, where do we fall with policy? And I think that there is a place where we could make there was a parent at the coffee that mentioned a strong policy where there are no phones and just taking a strong stance and kind of saying deal with it, which I think there's two sides to that. I think you're absolutely right. There would be a lot of parents that would say, no way, my kid needs to have the ability to be in touch with me, and my mom was one of those. And so I think it would be important to make the policy about protecting our children and their ability to learn, since I like that you used the word addiction. These phones are smartphones, and the people behind them are even smarter, and they're literally programmed to become a distraction. They're programmed to pop up with reminders like, hey, you haven't logged into Instagram today or for a little bit. They're meant to pull these kids in, and so I think that as a school, we could look at maybe a strong stance that includes trusting our children to be responsible and saying we do not want to see phones on campus or during school time or things like that, but then also having that strong expectation, but not necessarily confiscating. Those were just my thoughts around that policy. It would be interesting to hear the feedback around that, because I do appreciate the book so far, so thank you for mentioning that.
Okay. Mrs. Acker.
I did attend the Feathers and Flapjacks and also walked. I walked the track, and then it was nice going inside and having breakfast with people and having discussions, especially about the upcoming Ohio State game with Mrs. Pinto. And it's incredible to me how much the PTO does. It's been in several school districts, and I don't think I've ever been in a place where there was as much support for the teachers and for the students as there is here. I've attended all the coffees. I totally agree about the whole discussion. I'm just going to bring something up about cell phones later myself. It's not on our agenda, so I want to make sure we do bring it up, because it's something we need to talk about. I was at the East Valley Consortium of Schools with Dr. J and a couple other board members. It was in Gilbert. It was very interesting because they went through a whole thing about what to do about grades and making sure that all the students in the high school are aware of what they've taken and what they need to register for next time. And then going to Mrs. Pinto's coffee, she mentioned that we have something already in place with that. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It happens to be even more encompassing than what Gilbert was doing on their own. So that was very impressive. And I was at the coalition meeting, the planning meeting. Lots of good information and a lot to do with our students and children that live in the area that are so hooked on the cell phones that they're not going out and playing and they're not feeling like they're part of the neighborhood or the community, which is such a shame. Because I know when I grew up, my kids grew up, my grandkids too now, that they're able to go and play. And kudos to Dr. J for putting the elementary school the way it is, because our kids can really have a good time there. That's all.
Okay, thanks. So kind of jumping on some of the same things that I attended, the Honors and Gifted program, I attended the one for the middle school and the elementary school. And there was a decent parent turnout. It would be nice to have more parents there, but there was a good turnout in both of those. I was also at the Southeast Valley Consortium in Gilbert. Thanks for driving, Bernie. A little bit of way down there. And it was interesting, you mentioned about that we have a program like that. We do it with many fewer IT people than they had. I mean, they seemed like had at least 3, if not more, involved in doing that. So from the standpoint of economy, I think we're doing a good job on that. I attended the second half of Coffee with Kane yesterday, virtually, trying to work it in with my work schedule, and I managed to do that. And I especially appreciated the discussion about discipline that you shared, and also addressing the misconception or the reputation of Scottsdale versus Fountain Hills and why people go across the hill versus staying here. I think that was very, very interesting to know the history of that and hearing it. And what else? Oh, so the last thing, social media. So I'm not on social media, and somehow I survived. And I actually use my smartphone as a phone, primarily. So, I mean, it is possible to do that. Okay, that's all I have. Okay, moving on to reports. Do we have someone from Stugo today?
Yes.
Yes, come on up.
So our most recent event was homecoming, when we hosted a pep assembly, homecoming, and we hosted a pep assembly, I think it was January 31st, and the pep assembly actually went very well. But due to low turnout for the equipment, we're going to cancel it next year and kind of focus more on homecoming and prom and really just make a better event so more people will turn out for the school spirit too.
And we're planning a senior trip this year, if that's possible. We haven't done a senior trip before in the past years. So it would be to Mavericks, which is just in Phoenix. It's at the bowling and arcade area. So we just have like the students bus over, and then we would pay for a portion of the ticket for the seniors that want to go. It'd be on senior ditch day, which is the Monday after prom. So it'd be encouraging them to do something like yeah, spend time with their class.
I don't think we can endorse ditching, just so you know. I mean, it's...
It'll just be a better event for them. And then if students have free or reduced lunch, we can do that for their ticket.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Any comments for Stugo?
Sounds
Okay.
fun.
Thank you. All right, site council meetings, starting with the minutes, starting on page 22. Are there any questions or comments on any of those? Scroll through them here.
I did wonder, how do we actively look for, because I noticed on, I think it was the middle school, that they're missing some of the attendees, like they look for a PTO parent, like they look for people that kind of fit specific dynamics to
Yeah.
represent. How
So,
do we
so
look for
site
those?
council has, they have bylaws that they follow, and every site has a few different numbers based on districts. So typically, you'll have a student, representative, parents, community member, and then staff. Some of them are harder to find than others, so the principal should be advertising that out. And then what they'll do is they'll have an election. And basically what we would do is have anyone interested write a summary of what their goals are to be on it. And then we'd publish that out and give people a few days and then put out to all parents the ability to vote. And then from there, that person would be selected. So that's the process typically. I mean, I haven't looked at all their individual bylaws, but, you know, as a former principal, that's typically how you would do it. But some positions go unfilled because it's hard to, the hardest one usually is a community member that's not a parent. That one's hard to find sometimes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Can people join the site council, and can that election take place anytime throughout the year, or is it at a set time?
It can be filled at any time if there's openings, for sure. And if typically the principal should be watching, if it's a lot of times it'll be like a 2 and a 4 year term. So some people can pick, but usually having where you have a percentage of people will stay for institutional knowledge and the things that they've worked on in the past. So usually it's like a half or a third. You try to, maybe move on as time goes on. But they should be looking at those at the beginning of the year and then having those elections in August. And I'll check with them and see how they're doing with that. But that's never come up to me that they're having trouble finding site council members. So I can assist them if they're finding problems with that.
Let me ask you a question. I seem to recall Jill saying something about that as board members, we can't be part of that. Is that correct?
I think we can go, we're not
We can
supposed to
go
be
watch.
voting members on
Yeah,
a
you
council
can-
because
yeah,
councils
they're-
make recommendations
Right.
to the board.
They're
so then
open
we'd be
to
making
the public,
recommendations
but yes, the people on the site council are the ones that vote, yeah.
Right.
It was on the high school when it says in the notes, noted that we need more members. And so I think it looks like the ones that are missing, there's actually a teacher, a Fort McDowell rep, a Fort McDowell teacher, and an FHUSD PTO or parent. So, my question was just about how we advertise that to see.
Well,
try and-
the good news is they were talking about it,
Yes.
so
Absolutely.
we're halfway there. So I'll work with Barry on how we typically have done it in the past.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
So Krista, I know you're catching up on notes there, but I just want to make sure, is that mic, this one, is that live over there? Because I don't see the light on it.
I usually don't turn that, and the Stugo was just up there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted with something.
I just wanted to
But
let
yes.
you know before the meeting continues further.
Okay, anything else? Okay, moving on to the current enrollment report, page 40 in our packet, and as you can see, we're at just over 1,100, which is pretty stable for the last few months. Any comments or questions about that?
My only comment is I did notice that we lost 4 students to the Inspiration Academy and another 2, I think, to homeschooling, which would, again, I would love to have the discussion about the ESA funds and having those students eligible to participate, for a fee in our school sports and things like that. As well as I think that the trend that we see in public education and that we've seen in these other districts as well, a lot of districts are talking about budget cuts due to declining enrollment. I think the trend that we're seeing actually is beneficial to us because we are a small school district, so we have the ability to approach this a lot more like one of these smaller, more intimate schools or like a homeschool where parents and community members and everybody can be a lot more in touch and a lot more involved with their children's schooling than pretty much in any other school district around. I think that we could use this information to our benefit.
Yeah, let me comment. For every kid we lose to schools like that, we usually get some back. So it does, I don't know the exact number, but I can tell you that kids have gone back and forth between there and then coming back to our school district. And same, not always. There's a lot of homeschool students who do that their whole career, but we do get some that try it and then come back too. So it may be that this month there were 4, but it could be in earlier this year, there could have been 6 or 7 that came the other way. So just know that it does typically balance out. We're not seeing mass numbers anywhere. The competition, the last report I saw of students leaving for competitor schools is actually pretty low. The highest that I saw in the past year was students moving out of the state, or out of Fountain Hills, one of the two. So, but we can talk about that more later, but just wanted to clarify that, okay?
Is there follow-up, like if someone goes to Inspiration Academy, is there any effort to find out why?
Yeah, principals are asked to make calls out and talk to, I always did as principal, and call, and when I would see it, withdraw and just ask for feedback. Sometimes I will if I'm asked to, or I see something that maybe looks, maybe like surprised that happened, I'll call, but yeah, principals are supposed to. I can verify they're doing it.
It might be helpful, since one of our upcoming agenda items, to come is boosting enrollment. If we knew
Yeah.
if there was some pattern of reasons why people moved that we could potentially address and fix.
I do want to point out that we've had a lot of transfers in from over the hill, from Mountainside, from
Yeah,
that area.
that we've had quite a few. The middle school enrollment year over year, I believe, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I watch it pretty close, is up. And I think a lot of that is the school's been doing very well. They letter grade the Innovate 21 program. High school always gains kids as the year goes on because of the fact that they're the oldest kids and parents can typically look to move to Fountain Hills. But as we're going to talk more later today, for all those gains we get, still the big one is seniors out the door and kindergartners in, and it's going to be, again, a negative number this year. So we'll talk more about that later. Yeah.
I have one other comment or question. When parents withdraw, which I haven't done in this district yet, so I don't know, is there a form, like an exit form, where we do ask the reasons for withdrawal, besides just asking if they're moving out of state, asking for any other commentary?
I would have to check with the registrar if she
I can
used any
speak to
form.
that,
Yeah.
as a parent who did it. When I withdrew my daughter from kindergarten, there was a form, but it was kind of just a basic ask. And I was homeschooling, and I think that the note that was put in there was that I just withdrew her to educate her elsewhere. So I don't think there was no interview process or anything like that more than that. But I will say, my comment was as a parent who is currently homeschooling my kids, and I'm not interested in sending them anywhere else. I think that this school district is the best school district. Right now, it's not my choice, but I think, I believe that this school can be the community school that people want their hometown school to be. And that, I think that we can, like I said, I think we can use our small size, the fact that we're in a small town, and, I think that we can use that all to our benefit, even with the information that we see with people.
And I only ask that about the form because I do believe that some people aren't going to answer a phone call, right? They don't want to talk to anybody about it. And in this day and age, filling out a form, they might be a little more open to it. So it might be a way to just capture a little more feedback.
Anybody else? Okay. Moving on, public comments. Do we have any today? No? Okay, then we are moving on. Action items. We have several, starting with the personnel action report, page 43 of our packet. Any questions, comments on that? If not, how about a motion for approval?
I move we approve the action report.
Second?
Personnel.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved.
I'm sorry, Kim or Madison on the second? Thank you, Madison.
Yeah, Madison got first. You gotta be faster, Kim. Okay, the next thing is the payroll vouchers, starting on page 44 until 53. So again, any questions or comments or clarification on those? If not, we'll take a motion to approve. I'll move to approve those. Do we have a
First,
second?
I want to say thank you for sending the background information, the checks, and how we get to certain numbers, because they're from all the different buildings and everything. And I move to approve the payroll vouchers.
Okay, well then I'll second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is approved. Next is the accounts payable, starting on page 54. And likewise, any comments or questions on those? Yes, no?
No.
Okay, if not, then I'll move to approve the accounts payable vouchers. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Nay.
Okay, it's 4-1. Okay, next up, moving right along, donations, always a welcome topic here. Starting on page 69.
Some incredible ones. Thank you to everybody that donates all the time.
Yeah, some very generous ones there.
Very
Marine
nice.
Corps League, Verde Community Christmas Project. Very much appreciated.
I do have a question on the donation from David Nelson, the Marine Corps League. I noticed that that was 14 bikes, and I wondered, and it sounded like it's being split between two schools. I'm wondering how that works, how we decide who gets the bikes.
Yeah, I don't have any information at this time, so I've seen, we've had some bikes donated, but I didn't know the backstory, so I can ask Dr. Wheeldryer to share out with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, good question. Okay, that leaves us to supplemental reading for the middle school and the high school, starting on page, oh, do we need, oh, sorry, yeah. Do we want to approve the donations? Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks for reminding me. Got so excited about the donations, I forgot to approve them. Okay, so scrolling down here. Okay, supplemental reading for grades 6 through 12, and this is for Point Blank and Stormbreaker and Flipped, those books. They've been on display for 60 days, and no one stopped by to look at the book or sent feedback via email. How are these? These are all sent out to the parents. They're notified that those books are in there for
Constant
approval, right?
contact and site council.
Yeah.
And they're also discussed in, site council. Can we maybe, because I love the steps that are taken, I really appreciate that I feel like we're doing our due diligence to get the books in front of parents so nobody can claim that they don't know what our kids are reading. The only thing I would love to see is maybe something about whenever we have something on display at the district, maybe on that marquee, saying books on review or up for review or something. Thank you.
Yeah. And then if I can just give a little background, because I shared this with you, Rich, these actually came to you guys as an information discussion in December, and I totally missed it in our January meeting. So it's now
Okay.
coming to as action now. So some of you may not have come across it as an info discussion, but
So they've been available for a long time?
a long time, yes.
So if no one comes to read it, then we have to assign ourselves to read these, I guess? Is that the next step? No, kidding. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the supplemental reading material?
I move we approve the supplemental reading material for the middle school and the high school.
And a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Closing of unused bank accounts is next. And I don't know if anybody wants to, Mr. Hartman, do you want to explain this? Or be available for questions, whatever?
Yes, good evening, everybody. I hate those.
Don't break the mic. okay?
So, just not to sound elementary, but we've been constantly cleaning up, organizing, et cetera, and when we have bank accounts that are no longer in use or haven't been used in years, we are able to close them, and if there's money in them, move it to an appropriate account where it can be used, or close the account. So part of financial cleanup, but we do need board approval to close accounts.
Okay. And with the question I asked earlier, the workers' comp money is still there, it's just not in a separate account, so we save fees.
Correct.
Chase
Again, yeah, lots of cleanup and organization and coding and recoding. And again, I would welcome all of you as I have any questions. You're welcome to stop by. I look forward to March 3rd so we can kind of just share what we do. And you can see, have an opportunity to ask questions and see how all the work that Craig and I have put in, keeping in mind Craig's pay rate, which is especially good. But yeah, that's practice, and the money is still there. It's just, if it's moved, if we can close an account, clean things up, and move it. And I do what's called a journal entry, so it's all documented with the backup, and I have a notebook in my office of whenever we do a transaction.
Okay. Comments,
I
questions?
appreciate that, because I know there were, from looking at them from years on, there were even some clubs that had money and they're non-existent anymore, so.
Yep, just, appropriate cleanup, if you want to throw a term on it.
My question, I guess, is, was this a way to budget, or why were these accounts opened in the first place, and then why were they not used?
These go back years and years and years. So that's one of the things Craig's been doing all for the last year, is doing, projects like that to make sure everything is for the audits and everything looks better. And, the auditors will give you a report soon and they're going to come and speak. But we're definitely making really, really good progress over the years when it comes to that. So they're just things that he's been trying to clean up. So again, there's nothing missing, it's just being
I was wondering if
moved.
this was a way that we were like budgeting things by putting it in
Oh,
different
no,
accounts,
no,
or how
no,
are we,
no.
why were these created? Was there some benefit to creating them?
I can't speak to
Okay.
how far
Yeah.
back, this could go back to before Dr. Allen, I don't know how far back they go, but we've checked everything that has been done with the county. We've had the county coming out weekly for a long time now, and Chris spent 4 or 5 hours with them today, and we're just doing everything we can to make sure the audit is as perfect as it can be. It's always about a year or two out from the work we're doing now. You won't see that for a while, but these are the steps that will ensure that we have, hopefully in the future, very, very few findings.
How many bank accounts do we currently have?
How many?
Bank accounts?
I think just Chase alone, 7 or 8. I have to check the exact number. And then we have another account with our medical benefits in it. I would say between 7 and 10 actual bank, account numbers. Some of them are at the same bank.
I take it's required that we can't have one account. There are certain things that have to be in a separate account.
So,
right?
yeah, I don't even know if this is on, but to figure, and I'm terrified of it, so I won't touch it, but
You tilt it this way and it turns it off because the button's right there. So just don't touch.
what am I at home right now?
Yep.
And it was 8 hours with the county today, by the way. And then Bernie had to mention pancakes, so I'm a little distracted. But yeah, we have to have different accounts, and like I said, with the closures, it's all cleanup. I mean, there are accounts, we are using all of our expertise in different ways to clean up, and we do double and triple check everything from budgeting to closing accounts to anything with the county and the auditors. So it's just the system we've implemented here.
I know it's not a crazy amount, but is this going to go into capital or M&O budget? Or money funds?
So when there's money in an account that's no longer used, it depends what the account is, whether we can move it into capital or M&O. So we discuss it as a group and then check. So it would depend on what accounts we're talking about, but.
Are there restrictions on what accounts it can go to, or is it somewhat flexible and up to your discretion?
Both, to be honest. Some have very specific uses. Others, like impact aid or indirect costs, are very flexible. But you're stealing my thunder from March 3rd, so.
Okay. We'll see if we remember.
Right.
Anything else?
I
Kim?
have one other thing to note. I think from my conversations with Dr. J that the county coming out and working with you is per our invitation or our ask of them coming to work with you. It's not,
Oh, yes.
it's not them choosing to.
No,
Thank you for bringing that.
Thank
Yeah.
you for putting that on the
We
record.
are, so just to be clear, we started doing this early in the year with the hope to, first of all, training purposes, right, for Chris, and then also the way, I mean, before I do anything when it comes to, if it's something academic or something financial, I get multiple opinions, and I get it typically in writing that says that, yes, you can do this. And so the county coming out, we have 2 different representatives coming out frequently, and they've been really good at, checking the work and giving us opinions on things and validating what we may already know, but making sure it's right. And then also, we've been checking with Heinfield and Meach, our auditors, when appropriate, to say, is this okay to do, or would this be a finding later, to try to be proactive and avoid things in the future. So between Chris and Craig and the 2 from the county, they've been getting a lot of things done to really make me feel a lot better, just about our processes and where we're headed. So we'll have, like I said, they're going to keep coming out for the rest of the year, weekly, and that's good for Chris to learn from the county that they're the ones that are the experts.
Yeah, I mean, to be blunt, like, I'm new to this, which is pretty well documented, and I was motivated to get better and learn from the beginning because I'm not used to not knowing stuff, and they're free and they teach. So I said, great. And like Dr. J said, they come on Wednesdays, and I can ask what I think are very elementary questions, and they answer, and they know how to headway.
And I just, while we're on the topic, to clarify, I'm seeing 4 accounts here that are closed, okay? And you have one at 3,000. We already talked about workman's comp, how that's moving to just a different account, but the money is there for if that happens. The other account had $4.35 in it, and the other account had 0. So that's why they're closing those. It's just one less thing to monitor and have to, I guess, for them to keep an eye on and account for. And it made sense, talking to the county and Craig, to just reduce those numbers down. And so it just requires your approval to do so. But it is it is a small number. I just want to be clear with the public. Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the closing of unused bank accounts. Is there a second?
Nice second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, next up is the updated extracurricular activities, starting on page 86.
If I see correctly, it's only the sister city.
Yes, President Rakowski, members of the board and guests, we bring it back to you because Mr. Salzman did not want a fee for sister cities, and so we need to have it listed that way, because also that account needs to be able to collect tax credits and donations, and so he needs to have an account, but he doesn't want to charge a fee to be a member of sister cities. So that's why it's on there the way it is.
I love it. I think that's awesome.
Okay.
Is this going to be similar to help fundraise for the,
Poland trip.
yes, and.
Yeah, so that's actively going now, so if people want to donate to a student or to chaperones, things like that, they can do so through, that account by doing a tax credit.
Perfect. Thank you.
Other comments?
And I know tax credit papers have been given out to members of the Sister Cities Club
Mhm.
to see if they would help out too.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we're getting some of those.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
I so move.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's approved unanimously. Last thing on the action items is the 2025-26 school calendar.
Once again, there's nothing on there on when graduation is?
Oh.
Okay.
That's intentional right now.
So the only change is that one in red there, right? May 19th, 20th, 21st, half-day release?
Right, and I think
Okay.
it's a cleanup on Labor Day. On the calendar, it said, September 1st, but on the writing on the side was wrong, so that's been fixed.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that? Otherwise, is there a motion to approve the calendar?
I move we approve the calendar for 25-26.
How about a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries.
Who seconded? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, information and discussion items, starting out with the award of contract for a request for proposal real estate broker services. Mr. Hartman, welcome back.
I think I was just here. Yeah, so fun process, my first RFP, and I think you remember the 37-page document that we had on a previous agenda detailing the procedures for an RFP for many services, but this one happened to be the land sale real estate, choosing a realtor. So we followed the timeline. We have recommended land advisors who is here tonight with some gifts, not gifts, but information. I just wanted to make sure you were paying attention. They're here to answer any questions you have. And then the hope is that with the information you get tonight, you'll feel comfortable voting on it on the 19th. I do have a box of all of our documents from the process, which you are welcome to view at any time. We would have to call a meeting though, because since you are voting on it, eventually we have to make sure you're all privy to the information equally. So I'm happy to bring the box in and be here while you all look at it. If that's something you're interested in doing before the 19th, if you don't feel like tonight is enough information.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Hartman or the representative of the broker?
I appreciated the thorough background that you guys gave as far as like the process that you took to choose. I guess my only question is, was the decision unanimous between all of the members of the committee as who to go with?
Yes.
Okay.
Other comments or questions?
Question, was there a stated period of performance? Is this like until the property's sold, or is there a date where there's a contract for a year that they're signed up to broker the property?
It's hard to put a timeline on these things. Our expectation is 12 to 18 months, somewhere in there, and our expectation is, we work with them until property closed. I can't really predict any real estate sale, let alone school real estate sales. So it is a longer process than normal, so 12 to 18 months is the timeline.
Chris, I think what he's asking is, are they a realtor till it sells, or is this like they got 1 year to sell it? Is that what you're asking? Yeah.
We haven't put a time frame. I haven't put an end date
Well,
on it.
I have another question that might go right along with this, because we still haven't had a board discussion as far as Four Peaks and what we're gonna do there. So right now, is this simply for those land, the land that we're selling? Or
What was on the RFP, Chris?
I think we did include Four Peaks, but since that discussion hasn't happened yet, how are we
We
handling that?
included a combination of the three, so I think we're looking at.
So they would represent all three parcels?
Correct,
Okay.
correct, yeah. And we hadn't decided at the time of the RFP which of the three or all three that we're interested in.
So-
Well, then, does it change anything in the agreement if we chose not to sell Four Peaks? Like if that was for some reason something, because I remember you did mention maybe just demolishing.
Yes. Do you guys want to come up and speak to that?
Yeah.
Do you feel
Not
comfortable?
on our end. I'll say that.
Okay, like that was just made clear in the paperwork
Yeah.
that Four Peaks is not necessarily a guaranteed thing yet?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I think to answer your question, usually there'll be a listing agreement that establishes a time frame for representation. Now, that listing agreement can be flexible. There's cancellation clauses by yourselves if you don't deem us doing the accurate job. There's typically some clauses in there to say, hey, we have 4 offers from these builders, so if you take an offer with them or from the buyer within X number of months from cancellation of the listing, that we're still represented by them. But directly to your question, there'll be a term limit on the listing agreement and a cancellation clause for the district. Is that?
And as far as the scope of what you guys are selling, or did it include Four Peaks, or was it made clear that that might not be part of it?
I mean, I think you can maybe address this, but usually that's flexible within a listing agreement to say we're going to sell 1, 2, or 3, or any combination of those, and that can be built into essentially the agreement with us. You don't have to take an offer if you don't like it. You could likely in there, and I don't think we've negotiated the listing agreement necessarily as far as all the terminology, but that could be a portion or not, or withheld. I don't think we have an issue with that. I don't know how the formalities read regards to the RFP and actually,
Yeah,
having to sell or something.
Okay, I guess because
You
my,
just covered the whole broad spectrum,
okay,
and then you can choose how you want to move forward. It's a discussion about what you want to sell and what you don't want to sell.
okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't.
Yeah, so this,
approve
right
an
now,
RFP that-
what we're doing is we're selecting a realtor to represent the district, and then from there, future paperwork will come to you for approval, is my understanding. And you will have the ability to say what you want to do. My recommendation to you all is to sell the 2 parcels first, and then make a decision on Four Peaks once we have some cash to decide what to do with it that doesn't come out of our capital funding that we get yearly that is limited.
And also, throughout the process, requires your approval. So when we come with an offer, it requires your approval to move forward. You have to approve the contract.
Yes. I guess I just remember at the first meeting where there were multiple realtors, it included the Four Peaks, and I just wondered, because the board hadn't had the discussion on what to do with that yet, if we were gonna get in any kind of messy
You'll still
situation where
have,
it
no,
was-
you'll still have the ability to make that decision as a board. What they requested is the ability to represent us in all 3 parcels. How you do that will be up to, right? That'll be up to them. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Other questions? No? Okay, thank you. All right, then moving on to the supplemental reading for the elementary school, middle school, and high school. Page, 94? So this is number 1 Ladies Detective Agency, Smith and Flowers for Algernon, right, those 2. They were on display, and no one stopped by to look at the book. Again, we're going to have to assign these.
Maybe they're reading them online, let's get.
Maybe. So that's another question. So these are actually hardcover books that we're purchasing, right? I
Some-
wonder if that's even, yeah, I'm old school, I still
We're
like books,
required,
but,
yeah, we're required to put it on
No,
display.
so I think I think what you're asking is, would we buy actual books? Yes.
Right,
yes.
versus,
Yeah, we don't have, to my knowledge, we don't have really a online reading database or anything like that, because it would be very hard to manage in this, what we're doing right now. So they are books. Yes, will kids download a version on their tablet and take the one we give them and put it in their bag and never take it out? Possibly, yes. But we do still buy books, yes.
okay. Are we required to buy the hardcover books? I'm just looking from the cost standpoint, if no one's actually reading the hardcover book.
We have to provide a free and appropriate education. So if we assign it, then yes, we
Oh,
should
so
be.
these are all assigned
Yeah,
books.
if
Got
it's
it,
assigned,
okay.
we need to provide it.
Got it, okay, thanks.
Yep.
Other comments?
The reading of the books is because they're in the office. It's just that nobody's stepping to the
Well, right,
office to borrow.
I'm just
And
looking
we
at the
don't-
cost of buying things that people may not be actually physically using.
The students will be using it.
Yes, hopefully. Other comments, questions? Okay, moving on to ACT data presentation.
Thank you.
All right, President Rakowski, members of the board and guests, thank you for listening to this presentation on ACT scores. I'm always excited to talk academics, so I appreciate Ms. Duckworth coming forward and asking for this. This is what we love to do. This is one of the things we get excited about in our jobs, is looking at data and trying to move the needle academically. So before we start, I just want to give you a little background on the high school. So for members that are new and maybe don't have all the information, I can speak back to 2016 forward as principal. When I arrived, our scores were in the, back then it was AZ Merit, so it was a different test. And it was harder, I think, to get kids to take it seriously because there's no graduation requirement. There was nothing that really affected them other than taking it seriously, working hard. When they moved to the ACT, I think that helps a little because ACT scores can be used for college entrance. I think the top tier students who really work hard on their scores look at that as a way to really move themselves in the right direction for college. So we went from 2016 to 2020 where we had high 20, low 30% pass rates on AZ Merit. We quickly made some changes, brought in beyond textbooks, brought in reteach. I put a lot of time into benchmarks and running data and going through the data and giving to the teachers, these two kids move forward, this is what it'll do to your scores. And teachers did a great job of taking that seriously, working hard, and we ended up with our first letter grade in 2018. Got it again in 19 and again in 20, and then COVID, came and everything stopped at that point. There were no test scores in 21. I wasn't here in 21 and 22, but they definitely went down during that time, and we had to start back at a C letter grade and have to work our way back up over the last 3 years. And last year, in year 2 of that transformation, we got back to the A letter grade, and then we maintained it again this year. And we're looking good to maintain it again next year. So 5 out of 6 years, we were able to keep that letter grade. There was 1 year where it went down. So with that, what we did is 2 years ago, Chris Alexander and I started having some discussions about how can we improve scores. And I was at the Beyond Textbook Super Conference in an ACT session with Brent Edwards, who's one of their directors for the program, and he was talking about how to boost ACT scores, and it just kind of hit me, why don't we do it twice? And so I came home with that idea, and Chris quickly started talking to the state and started talking to finance, and we decided we were going to do the ACT twice a year. So we started that last year, and we did it in February, and we didn't get the results back quick enough, and so we didn't know what the results were before they took it again in April. The reason we picked February was because that coincided with the end of the ACT prep class. That was another thing that came to me sitting in that presentation, is to, instead of, trying to find ways to prep all the time in maybe the first 10 minutes of class, or having the kids in on a Saturday, or bringing in a company to do it, I thought, why don't we just have an elective called ACT Prep? We have time with the trimester schedule, and then how about ACT Aspire for the freshmen? And that's what we ended up coming back with. We put it in the schedule, and this is year 2 of that. So right now the kids are in ACT Prep. Every junior has to take it. It's a wheel, which means that they go to 3 different teachers over 12 weeks. So they'll take 4 weeks with science, 4 weeks with math, and 4 weeks with English, okay? And during that time, they're working on test-taking strategies, they're working on questions, and they're prepping for that test. And so last year we did it in February, thinking they just came out of ACT Prep, this would be a good time to do it, and then we'll do it again in April. And we found it was too close. The kids were already test fatigued in just that short period of time. And so we moved it this year to October. It was October or November. It was late October, early November. And we got our results back in time to use them this year during the ACT prep class to start moving the needle with some of the kids. So that's a little background on where we're at. So when you see this ACT data, keep in mind, they took this at the beginning of their junior year, where they're required to take it at the end of their junior year. So they're going to get to do this again. So their scores can only go up, which is pretty unique with the ACT, because it's a super score that you can get. You can't drop, you can only go up, which is good for the kids. So this benefits them doing it twice as they're applying to colleges, because if I have a really good day in math on day 1 and I have a bad day the next time, but I do better in English, I'm going to keep my math score, but my English score is going to go up. So this is a good service we do for the children of Fountain Hills. So when you look at composite scores, I'm comparing these to the Arizona state. I can only compare it to the 2024 cohort, because that's all the data that Arizona has at this time, because they're not going to take the test until April. But we'll see where we come in at that time. And then mind you that these scores are preliminary, because we're going to do it again. So when you look at the overall composite of the ACT, so this is taking all the scores combined and giving a composite score, we beat the state average by a full point, okay, 18.7 to 17.7. When you look at ELA scores, we beat the state average 16.7 to 18.2. When you look at reading scores, we hit 19.6 to 17.8, and math scores 17.6 to 18.1, and our science score 17.9 for the state, 18.5. And just to give you an idea, when kids retake the test, and we saw this last year, our hope was, when they take it again, our score, composite, our science, and all these scores are going to jump. It's so hard to jump, and when you take all those kids and they take it again, our scores might go to 18.6, maybe 18.7 a second time around, unless there was a drastic shift in it, right? So a lot of times we were expecting bigger shifts when they took it a second time, and they came in pretty close. There were some kids who did better. There were some kids who maybe didn't take it as seriously the second time. But we feel comfortable from October to now April, they won't be as fatigued to take it again, and hopefully they'll take it very seriously and work hard. So the other part of the ACT when we get our letter grade is what's called proficiency. So you get a math proficiency score and you get an ELA proficiency score. And so here, this is showing our kids that get points for our letter grade for proficiency. And you can see that we beat the state average here by about 10 percentage points is roughly what it is. And we had 65% we had 65% of those proficiency points in English and 60% of those proficiency points in math if everything was to end today, based on those calculations. And then what they do is they take that proficiency points and they give you a total point out of 30, and I'll explain that here in a minute. So you see in math, we beat the state average in math proficiency, and we beat it again in English as well. So we beat the state average in every category of the first round of the ACT. All right, what we then do is we take this data, and it's called the static file, and we do what's called a data dig. And we want to thank Beyond Textbooks for hosting the data dig earlier this year. I took the principals to that so they could learn how to do this on their own. And I went 2 years ago down to, I can't remember where I did. I think I went to I think it was in Flagstaff. They typically do things in Tucson and Flagstaff. And if you're in Phoenix, you're kind of in the middle. So you can go either way. And when you look at the data dig, you're looking at roughly 100 and some students, and you're seeing what their actual scores are on the test. And there are cut scores for each of the subject areas. So math has a cut score and English has a cut score. When you look at the students' scores in those areas, they fall into 4 different categories. So one is minimally proficient, which you get 0 points for towards your letter grade. Partially proficient, they get 0.6 of a point towards your letter grade. And then for proficient, they get 1 point, and for highly proficient, they get 1.3 points. So what we try to do is to look at the data, and we have a spreadsheet. I'm just not going to show because it has kids' names on it. But we have a spreadsheet, and we highlight the kids into 4 different colors. So blue is highly proficient, green is proficient, yellow is partially proficient, and red is minimally proficient. And then what I do for them, and I gave this to them so they have it, is I go through the data and I do some scenarios. And this is really where you can make a move here on your overall proficiency. So currently, ELA is at about a 65% proficiency rate on that first test. And if 3 of the proficient students, they were 1 point away from being highly proficient. So if we can identify those 3 kids, which we have now identified them, and we talk to them, we work with them, and we look at which questions they missed and what area they struggled in to do better the next time, they can move into that next category, okay? We had 2 that were partially proficient, that were 1 point away from being proficient, so we can move them over. And then we had 1 minimally proficient that was 1 point away from being partially proficient. So if those 5 students all were to go up one point, basically, the proficiency would move to 68%, okay? Now your hope is the second time they take it, more kids will find proficiency, and because they're still learning a lot of this material as they're going through the year, because this is the end of a junior year exam. So the teachers are using that data. When it comes to math, it was really stood out, was we had 4 proficient students that were 1 point away from being highly proficient, 6 that were partially 1 point away from being proficient, and 16 minimally that were 1 point away. That's where you can really move the needle, as you get those 16 to get you a point or half a point or whatever. That really moves the needle. So if all that happened, the proficiency would go from 60 to 85%, which is great. So that's what that data dig does. It allows the principals to work with their teachers and say, hey, let's work on this. Let's work on this group, and let's move them to the next level. Okay? It's kind of like track, right? If you stay left and you're not last, that's a good thing. And it's kind of the same thing with this. We're trying to say, hey, don't be in that red category. Move up, move up, move up. And the farther they move up, the better we can do.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a certain number of questions that they missed that equivalent to 1 point? Is it like 1 question, 5 questions?
Yeah, I'd have to ask the teachers that teach it. I haven't looked.
Just curious.
Yeah, I'd have to ask. It's probably, I'm sure it's not 1, because it's out of, the test out of 36 points. So I would imagine it's probably an area that they probably just didn't do as well. And it could be a couple of geometry questions, or something from maybe 8th or 9th grade that they just haven't looked at in a while. That's one of the things too, is a lot of the math is you got to go back and kind of look at some things you haven't looked at, especially if you're in calculus or statistics. That kind of math isn't on this, so you have to kind of go back and look at things that you haven't done in a while. So the data dig is really important. We did one as a group with principals. As soon as the data came in, we had one. So Val looked at her ASA scores, which is a little different. That's from the previous year. And then Kim looked at her AASA scores from the previous year, and then Barry and I spent time on these new scores. So if everything else falls into place with the letter grade system, so this is how we get points. Ours is a little different than the rest of the districts because we do not have enough students in the ELL program that we don't get the 10-point option. So they distribute those 10 points throughout the rest of the pie chart. So where most schools their proficiency is 30%, and the CCRI is 20, grad rate is 20, and growth is 20. I'm sorry, there would be another 10 in there that is ELL. Since we don't get that, they bump ours up to 34, 22, 22, and 22, okay? And so the proficiency is the biggest pie chart there that we have to do well on to get the A letter grade. To get an A, you take your points that you get from these 4 categories, and you get points for each one. So for example, our CCRI data was very good this past year because we have a lot of kids taking advanced placement classes, we have an internship, now we have those ASU classes, so I expect that score to be really, really high, probably really close to 20 is my expectation on that. The proficiency at 65 and 60% is going to be, we're going to get a lot of points there, okay? There's room to grow and be better, but we're going to get a lot of those points. And then our grad rate, we already know, was 96% last year. So remember, we were 79 3 years ago. It's now at 96. So that number is really good. And your graduation rate is always a year behind. So you already know what that is going in. And you can only get those full 22% of those points is if you're over 90% grad rate, or if you were below that, you showed growth year over year. So we are fine because I think last year's at 90, 91 or something like that, and now it's at 96. So the last part is growth, and this is where the middle school got their A, is in the growth area. Their scores, although maybe not as proficient as we'd like, year over year and compared to their peers and all the things that they look at growth, Dr. Wheeldriver's growth scores were really high, and that's where she was able to move the needle so quickly and get those 20 points needed to go from a C to an A in 1 year. Once you get to an A, it is harder to maintain, okay? That is just the reality. It's just like winning a championship. It's hard to stay there. You got to keep working. You can't rest on your laurels and things that you've done in the past. So Kim is working with her staff on push, push, push. You got to keep moving. We got to keep this and keep the momentum going. At the high school, like I said, I'm predicting, I don't know where it'll come in, but just off the ACT numbers I've seen and knowing the growth that goes with that, and then looking at the grad rate and the CCRI, they have a really good opportunity to maintain their letter grade. I'm not going to say they will. I don't want to say that, with certainty, but they've got a really good shot at that.
Can you remind me what CCRI stands for?
College and Career Readiness Index. So it's a massive Excel file that the counselor, the principal, and the registrar have to go through and put in a bunch of data. It hits on FAFSA and college level courses, AP courses, a couple things. There's a lot of things in there that the kids get points for, okay? So then there's 2 different cut scores. High school is different than elementary, K-8. The K-8, to get an A, you have to have 84 points in the K-8 model, but in the high school model, it's 82. So you have to have at least 82 points out of, for us, it's out of 90. So we only have, well, actually we have 100 points to work with. We don't, they used to not count the 10%, so that's throwing me off a little bit, but now it looks like they redistribute that in there. But yeah, 82 to 100 is an A, 80, and you can see the rest of the way down where you're at, okay? The other thing that factors in that the principals need to be aware of, and remember, when you're trying to maintain this letter grade, you have to, just like coaching, you have to think of every little detail. The little things matter. And this is one of the little things that really does matter a lot, and that is how many kids take the test. So if only 95% or less take the test, you can you only get so much points for each kid that took it. But if the number goes up to 99.35 or higher, then you get some bonus points for almost everyone in your school taking the test. And I know last year we were over that 99%. I push really hard on the principals to do whatever it takes to get kids in to take the test, even if they're not there on the test day. So they will, for a week or two after, they have a window of time to get everybody tested and through, and to get as high of a percent, because if you look at the math there, you're dividing that out, and you got 104.51% versus the 100%. You can see that proficiency number for the same scores went from a 24.38 to a 25.49. So if you're missing a letter grade by half a point or 1 point, you could have got it right there. So those are the little things that we do to try to move the needle. And I can tell you that a lot of schools that don't do that, they miss out on the opportunity to really make a move by not knowing how the rules, how the game works, okay? And I will say the game has shifted in the last, I was thinking about this, it's been 9 years since I started looking at this, and we went through, AIMS, AZ Merit, AZM2, ACT, and all of that in 9 years. So it's kind of like, I put in a coaching perspective, if we're working on basketball all year on the three-point shot all summer and getting ready for the year, and then we show up and there's no three-point line, that makes it hard, right? And that's what we've had to deal with over the last 9 years, is that the test keeps changing, what the requirements keep changing, and the schools are being asked to maintain those high scores, which is hard to do at times. So a lot of credit goes to our staff and to our students for showing up, working hard, and giving us the A district letter grade that we have received. So our next steps with ACT is to continue our formatives, reteach, and benchmark routines that we already do. That's the heartbeat of everything we do with ACT and our letter grades. It is all embedded in the formatives they do weekly, the reteaches they do weekly, and then the benchmarks they do at least quarterly. And those give us information. I used to wait for the benchmarks to come in on benchmark day, and I'd print them, I'd highlight the ones they could go after, and I'd send it right back to them and say, here you go. You fix this, by next term, I guarantee we're gonna do better. ACT prep classes are meeting this term, so they're wrapping up. The trimester ends on February, I think 14th, right around there. So that'll be ending, and they'll go on to their third term. And just remember, this is the cool part about the trimester. Our kids on February 14th will have finished a full year of high school by February 14th. It's all bonus now from here until May. So all the kids in other districts, what we accomplished already, they won't accomplish till May. And that's really cool about the trimester. So our kids are now going to get an extra 1.5 credits or more based on what grade they're in by having a third term that they're going to do. Okay? We review daily until April. That is something I always ask is to the principals to share with their teachers. Have a review question on the board daily. Ask someone to answer it. Ask the rest of the class, are they right? Have a quick discussion. Move on with your lesson. But you should be prepping questions every day. And then take the ACT again in the state testing window, which we'll do in late March, early April. And when we get those results, I'll come back and I'll redo this and show you comparison between before and after and how that worked out. Ensure a high participation rate, which is up to Mrs. Pinto, to make sure she gets that over 99.35. And then we complete the CCRI once the seniors graduate over the summer, and we submit that in June. And then we start reviewing the data from the second ACT with the senior class as they come back to us in August, because a lot of them will take the ACT a third or fourth time their senior year and go for that super score. So reviewing the data with them and seeing how they did will assist them with that. So with that, questions?
I was going to say great job, and I know what it's like, that every few years you get ready, you do everything, you know where your scores are, your percentages, and then they change the test. And I know the ACT's gone through, I know I was in a different state, there was the same thing that happened. It ended up being the ACT, which makes a lot more sense, plus they can use it for college already.
Yep.
Did the students actually get the questions and how they answered them, or they just get like an area of weakness?
I
or
believe
what
they
you got
just get they just get their results.
They
I'd
don't
have to
actually see
ask,
the
my daughter
questions.
took it, I mean,
I know years ago they didn't do the questions.
yeah, I don't think they do, I think they get it, they just get the score. But there's a lot of, there's a lot of test preps out there, we have it through IXL, so IXL has test prep in there. And I think they have one other program that has it, so they can do sample questions in that prep class in preparation for
Yeah,
it.
see, our residents actually will get the questions that they missed. They'll see exactly what they answered. Yeah.
I'll check into that, I mean, when I was principal, we didn't have we did, I take that back, we did have the ACT.
We have a parent that might have
Oh.
an answer.
Yes, Jen, come on up, Jenny. Okay.
They don't see the actual questions that they got wrong, but the information that came back groups it to say this area of math or this area of English, you got some wrong and stuff, so they have an idea of where.
So how specific? Is it like geometry, or is it polygons? I mean, is it that specific, or?
I can't remember.
Okay, that'd be interesting. I mean, it's how specific it is, so. Because geometry is like, well, it's a
Yeah.
big area.
We can, I'll get that for you, Chris, if you want to take a note of that, we'll get that to you. And remember, earlier this year, we had our kids that scored really well on this come be recognized, and we did have a perfect score, I believe, in math, and a couple that were 1 point away at 35. So definitely some really, really good scores, and there's kids, I've talked to some kids and they said, I'm looking forward to doing it again. I feel like I could do better. The biggest thing this is one of the reasons why we like to do it before April is the feedback I got from my own daughter was I felt rushed, like I wasn't expecting the math section to go that fast. And it's a lot of times it's teaching the kids some test taking skills of I don't know this does not look familiar. So instead of spending a lot of time on it, I'm going to skip it, go to the ones I do know, and then when I have time, go back. So teaching the kids that, and they can get rattled. And my daughter said I got rattled with the time. So now they know going in what to expect. Like, hey, I got to move a little faster. I'm going to get rattled. I got to get over it and move on to the next one. So I think what we're doing, I don't know of any other school doing what we're doing with ACT prep and taking it to this level. And that's why I like to go to the few conferences I do go to a year is I have time to just think. And when I think, sometimes these wild ideas pop in and some work and some don't, but this one has. So we're really excited about where we're at with ACT and continues to see growth, and we'll come back with our results. Probably be like over the summer or early August, I can do another presentation and just compare how we did 1 versus 2. Okay?
I have a couple things.
Yeah.
First, I want to commend you and thank you for being creative and movable and adjusting when you had them take the test the first time, and using the information and the feedback that you got that maybe the February and April was too close. I think that's awesome. I love when there's flexibility in how we approach an issue. I think that's really good for our students. And I love that they have more than one opportunity to take the test. Are there any incentives tied to them doing better, like the second time around? Like, do we offer them any kind of, like extra
Teachers
funding?
can do, if they want to do something with, showing mastery, or they want to do some kind of incentive, yes, and they do.
Because I think that would,
Yeah.
especially for the ones that are already proficient and maybe they don't necessarily have the desire to outdo themselves the time before because they were okay.
Yeah.
But I think incentives could work really well. And for the unmotivated, maybe the less motivated kids,
Sure.
incentives could be fun. Not that we need rewards for everything that we do, but
But from the
it could be
coffee
good.
from Mrs. Pinto, they do have incentives. They
Tied
have
to it.
different things tied.
Oh, good, that's awesome. And then the only other thing I was thinking is, and I've mentioned this before, I understand the difficulty when they change the tests and they change maybe the way that it's administered, or they change the standards. But at the same time, at least as far as I know, I don't think the standards change so dramatically that from like.
They don't,
Yeah.
but what it does do is certain tests may emphasize things more than others, and so it's just like, it's like anything. If I always used to tell my teams, like, if we're prepared, That's half the battle. Like the number of games we're going to win in a season is probably determined in the summer by how prepared we are coming into it. So when you're into the weeds like we are in this district, trying to get every kid to move up, it's nice for consistency, right? Like we had AZ Merit down. I mean, we had it down to a science. And we had at one point of comprehensive public schools. I'm not talking about every, people that don't take every kid that walks in. I'm talking about comprehensive public schools. We were in the top 2, top 5, for a couple years there with our scores. They were fantastic. Our teachers really knew what standards are going to be the most important to do. And I agree with you. So I've had people in the past say, when it comes to a standardized test, and if I'm teaching social studies at the end of the year, my hope is if you give my kids a social studies test on American history, they should pass it, is my hope, right?
Yes,
So I get it, but if the test has a lot on, say, World War II, and we prepared a lot for the Civil War,
Yes.
it may skew it a little bit, not drastically to a point where it's like, you're in the 30% range, but I'm saying it can have an impact. And so when you're trying to be a perfectionist, when it switches a lot, it does make it hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Consistency definitely makes
Sure.
the fast track, I guess.
Yeah.
But I guess my hope and the encouragement would just be with the standards, as long as we're teaching those standards, that the test really shouldn't change that much. And it's the application. And I actually liked that you used a basketball analogy, because if you practice that motion, that 3-point throw, even if you go and the line's not there, you'll be able to figure it out because you have that muscle memory. You know those spots on that court. I played basketball, and I remember my
We're
coach
just getting
always being like,
one, we're just getting one less point, though.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is,
incentive.
like you said, that preparation, if you're
Yes.
truly prepared,
Yes.
they can kind of throw anything at you and you'll be good. And I think our teachers do a really good job of not just teaching to the test,
No, we do not.
but
But we also have the time in the trimester to do something that couldn't be done in the past. You couldn't make every junior in a semester schedule take ACT prep. They wouldn't graduate on time.
Yes, and I love the creativity.
So
of
that
trimesters
is
as
one
well.
of the things, and remember, we do this with our freshmen too, with ACT Aspire. So now they've had a full year, basically, 2 full semester worth of prep classes in the first 3 years of high school, which, again, for a lot of parents that go out and pay an ACT prep, course or a tutor to do that, we do it for free here. So that is a perk.
I love that. And I love our mentoring program. I think that helps a lot too,
Yeah.
the little kids. At least that's what I've seen when I'm at the elementary school. The other question I had, oh man. I guess I'll ask that later because I don't know where it went.
Anybody else?
Yes, I do have a couple questions. So in terms of teaching test taking, is that taught, and is it taught in the ACT prep and Aspire
Yes, my
courses?
understanding is that they are working with them on understanding how the test works, understanding the timing, understanding the pacing, understanding what kind of questions they may see, and preparing them for that. The next time I come out, I can bring Ms. Marsima. She teaches it, and she's one of our math teachers. She can, talk a little bit more about that. But yes, that should be part of it was the original vision of it, was to do that. So yes.
Yeah, and then going along with that, and I think it's kind of already been answered, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it again. So we all know that there's a multitude of things that are important in education, and it's not just test taking,
Sure.
right? And so I think, it's clear that in their regular classes, we're still teaching to the standards and that kind of thing. So they're getting hopefully a well-rounded education where they're not just focusing on, I've got to do well on this test.
Well, they're not, because while they're taking Algebra 2 their junior year, we're not really they're teaching the standards, but they're not talking about the ACT exam. They're doing that during the elective, which is designed for that. So yeah, I think they're always thinking about what's on the exam and making sure they're prepared for it. But I would, as much as I know, as much time as I spent in those math classrooms over the last 9 years, I can tell you that they are making sure those standards are taught well and that the kids know it before they move on to the next step. And that's where the reteach, it really helps. So, yeah.
I love that we do the reteach, and my only other question was, because I'll be honest, Arizona, is struggling as far as like proficiency rates just throughout the state, and I think every state, public education is kind of struggling. What are our proficiency levels for our graduating seniors? Because I remember that when I was campaigning, that was kind of a topic of discussion.
From last year?
Yeah, where are we sitting, not compared to the state, but just like how many of our students that are graduating are proficient at grade level? And if you don't have it this time, we can.
Yeah, I mean, every cohort is different, right? So some cohorts do better than others, and so, but they were high enough to get an A. I don't have it on me with me now, but I would say, if I had to guess, I mean, I would say 50% or higher proficiency rate last year to get an A, but I'd have to look. I know we had a dip in English last year. It was quite a dip, and I addressed it, this year. And I don't know if there's anything to address. It could have just been, like I said, it was just a year where the kids maybe struggle with that a little bit more. But this year over year, I know the ELA scores went up tremendously on this first one versus last year. So I'd have to get the exact numbers, but they were high enough to get an A letter grade. Again, a lot of this too comes into pride in the test, right? And so, yes, there may be some incentives that people do across the state, but for some people who, convincing them, hey, work hard on this, and some response I've gotten in the past is, well, I don't plan to go to college, I don't plan, I'm gonna do a career, So getting them to have pride is one of those things that I used to do, and I know Barry is doing that now, is bring them all to the lecture hall and talking about, hey, we work hard to beat other teams in sports. We all come and have some kind of, that Stugo tells you dress this way and come out and be loud and let's put a ball through the hoop more than them. We tell them, well, let's beat them academically too. Like, let's have higher scores, right? Let's represent our town and have something that our town feels proud of. And that goes a long way with the kids, because the kids who are here, the kids who have not left, the kids who have stayed in Fountain Hills, they have a lot of pride in being a Falcon and staying home. And so when I talk to them like that, I know it does mean something to them. And so I think that as part of why they've done, I think, better over the last couple of years, is we've reminded them that they represent this really great community. Yeah.
Yeah, and an offshoot of that is that you root for the team even if you're not playing.
Yes.
Same kind of principle.
Well, and
yeah.
I do think that, when it comes to public education, I love that you say all the time, we take anybody and everybody, including the less motivated kids that maybe don't feel like education is what they want to spend their time doing. And so I love that we show growth and we show consistency in the way that we teach, and we're going to do our best by every student, but it does.
Well, 96% of them graduated. So
exactly. That's awesome. And I like the trimester setup so that we give them as many opportunities to learn what they need to learn and graduate proficient.
Yep.
I think that's wonderful, so thank you.
Yep.
Other questions?
I have one other comment. Is there any recognition that we make with the students? So for example, maybe addressing some of the students who are less motivated to take the ACT exam, because I can see there's an opportunity where they might surprise themselves, right? In a certain subject on the ACT, they do much better than they expected themselves to do. Do we call out that or do any kind of recognition for those students just to give them, I do agree. I think that students are more motivated to learn if they have confidence in themselves, and even if they can find just one subject that they're.
I couldn't agree more. It's self-efficacy. It's
Yeah.
one of the number one things that moves the needle on achievement. We did this year for the first time, bring the kids in that scored really high to like we do with athletics. We bring them in when they make the playoffs or set a record. So we did the same thing academically this year. That was something I wanted to get done. What I've shared with, and I know Mrs. Pinto is going, if not already has, but will do this, is one of the things I like to do is call the kids down, just have a talk with her, like just one-on-one, like, hey, you got a 15, you're 1 point away or 2 points away from being proficient. You did really well, and a little extra push. I mean, high school kids, if you're genuine with them and they know you truly care, they definitely respond well to that. And call the kids on that got, a 36 or a 35 and say, let's do it again. Let's do something, back to back. Let's do it twice, So yes, that's one way. The other way could be through, you gotta be careful. Like I said, every kid who came here was invited and they gave permission to be recognized. But Barry is good at that. And I know she's meeting with all the seniors this coming week on their graduation requirements, just a double check to make sure we don't have anyone slip through. And I can definitely tell her again, we've talked about already about call down the kids and it doesn't take you that long. There's only 100 of them. So it goes pretty fast. 10 a day and you're done in 10 days. So it goes quick. Yeah, I agree. All right, anything else?
Okay.
All right, I think I'm
Thank
still
you.
here for a while.
Thank you.
All right, special ed?
Yeah, so I'll call you up if I need you, okay? Leah helped and Chris and Kaylee just kind of put some numbers and things together. So what we're looking at tonight is special education expenses, and this has been one of the things that has been a really big number in our budget, and you all have heard me talk about this last year, this year. And it's one of those things where we want to help every kid and we want to make sure they have everything they need, but we don't always get all the funding to do it, and that's the part that's hard, and that's what we're here tonight to kind of look at. So just to walk you through expenses, all these are fluid, so you're going to see the word fluid next to it. That's because we've seen with contracted teachers you have approved, they come, they go, there's not a lot of stability there, so those numbers have shifted as the year has gone on, as one has come in or one has left. We also have kids who are in outside placement that come back to us, so that number shifts as they come back. So what's encumbered and what is a reality are two different things as the year goes on. So first of all, when you look at salaries, benefits of all special ed combined, that's 1.66 million, okay? So that's for every salary and benefit for anyone who teaches in the special ed department in the district, okay? This is not contracted. These are just our own people, and this is data I received from Kaylee Brown, so.
Do you have a number of staff or like a number type?
Yes, that's why I have Ms. Gleason here. Teachers,
So we have
come on up. Probably have
nine special ed teachers, one occupational therapist, two speech and language therapists, then myself, and then the ESS specialist.
paraprofessionals.
I know I skipped that one because I had to think for a second. How
It's-
many? It's probably around 12.
Yeah, it's quite a bit number.
What was the ESS specialist?
That's Jennifer Miramon, who does Medicaid
And so there's just the one?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many parapros, sorry?
We'd have to give you, it's a
Okay.
lot. They're scattered out throughout all the schools, so.
And do they do more than special ed services? They
No.
kind of help all, or is it just special
Well, I mean,
ed services?
our expectation is you always greet and
Help
say hi to
everybody.
everybody and help someone with a problem, but yes, they're designed to.
Their focus is-
Yes, okay. Contracted staff, we've actually got this number down quite a bit from what you approved earlier in the year, because we've had really bad luck there. And I continue to put that out to legislators and you, and I've spoke with the AEA, I've spoke with the superintendent groups, that the contracted costs are very high, and it puts us in a really tough spot. And so we have, throughout this year, we've had teachers, paraprofessionals, and a PT who are all contracted. So that number is lower than what we expected it to be, because one of our contracted teachers did not finish, and we had a Fountain Hills teacher come back to us that was able to fill that void, so that saved us quite a bit of money. Okay, that was just everything aligned kind of perfectly for that one, and that helped a lot through this year. But that number is what I want to talk about later, is I'd like to get that number to 0, is my hope, okay? But is that realistic? There's a hope, and then there's a realistic of what we can do. And then outside placement, there's a huge number. And these are students that we have that need additional support that we cannot provide as a small district. And they have to then be at what's called a level D placement, which is the most restrictive environment that they can't. They need those additional supports. And some of these students will need not only the tuition paid and transportation, but then they'll also need services beyond tuition, like speech.
Some of the students in outside placement receive speech and language, occupational therapy. They might need additional behavior support from an ABA therapist. Some have one-on-one paraprofessionals as another layer of support. So
Each time that happens, there is additional funding, right? I mean, I know it doesn't cover, but.
I'm going to talk about the funding here in a minute. And these change year to year, right? So as students come back to us, students go out. What all they'll need at that outside placement will shift based on their IEP, okay? So the tuition so far this year, and again, it's fluid because Leah's been working really hard to make sure our students in outside placement meet their exit criteria, meet their goals, and come back to us, okay? And so if you look at the tuition alone, $539,018, and then contracted transportation, $141,292, because again, sometimes they need support in the transportation as well, and having the company or the school come out and pick them up has been the best way for us to do that. So that comes to $683.10, and this is the area we've looked at the most is, how do you resolve that? So not a lot of school districts have a level D placement. Mesa does, but I do not believe I know Scottsdale does not. I talked to Paradise Valley not long ago. I'd have to go back and check. I know they've had it in the past. So some school districts have it and some don't. Most do not, though. I will say most do not have a level D placement. One of the things I've talked about, and I haven't had any momentum on this, and I've spoke a couple of times to them, is possibly a partnership with Cave Creek Schools of partnering on level D placement, because we're both small, we're both the Falcons, we're both blue and silver, and we're both small communities. So it does make sense, and I've even called it the Falcon Initiative or something like that. So I'm hoping that, the last time I saw their superintendent, we talked a little bit more about this, and I think this summer we're going to try to talk a little bit more. It would take a year or so to get that off the ground, but it is something we could look at in the future. Maybe we provide K-8, they provide, or K-5, and they provide 6-12, or vice versa. So that is something we could look at. I have Mesas are pretty full. They're level D because they serve 50,000 students, so the few programs they have are usually full. But for us to do our own is really challenging, okay? Because you're going to have to find a teacher who has this level of credentials, right, which is really hard to find, and then maintain them for a period of time, which is, with what they can make in other places, especially with contracted agencies, always looking for the hardest to fill people. Plus parapros in there, and possibly nurses and different types of positions that would need to be in there. It is a challenge to do that and then the other part that's hard is you can't have, for example, we had a level D, you can't have high school kids and elementary kids in the same program. So you have to have 2 or 3 different programs, and then it becomes where it costs more, if not the same, to do it in-house. So it really is hard. But what I have done is I have questioned this process all year, and I've done so much research on this of how to get our money back from the state. So I've been really working hard on this. I've talked to the county, the state, I've talked to legislators, I've talked to other school districts, and I feel, I'm always skeptical about taking a victory lap. But I've already started having reimbursements come to us for these students, okay? Jennifer Miramon has been working really hard on, putting in the paperwork for high-cost child, and we've also been able to get some additional funding for students who are in outside placement that we haven't gotten in the past. So I'm hoping for 250 is what I'm hoping for, but I'm being realistic that I feel comfortable probably getting 100, but I'm hoping for like 250. So you get 250 off of that, then you're in a much better number, right? That's a number that our budget can typically handle. It's something we can typically maintain. So more to come on that, but we have started seeing those reimbursements come back, and that's a huge positive for us because I've been on the phone with everybody trying to find out who's going to reimburse us some money here, okay? So here's the proposal that just, we're not voting on anything tonight, but something to think about. We have brought this before you in the past, and now just something we got to think about as we move into next year, is increase the annual stipend for SPED teachers for a couple reasons. I know in a budget cut year this is tough, but we got to think about the alternative is a $120,000 teacher that we're going to pay out of the same account anyway. So if we can maintain the great teachers that we have and hopefully have a little bit more play for Kaylee Brown when she's making an offer to a self-contained teacher, we might get ourselves in a spot where they're going to make the same with us as they would with a contracted teacher, but now they're getting benefits and retirement and things like that. So proposal, again, this is just for you guys to discuss and tell us your feedback. Additional $5,000 stipend to resource teachers as a way to say, hey, we know your caseloads keep going up. We know that you have a lot going on and you have a lot of options, a lot of choices. So stay in Fountain Hills, a little extra money for those people who've been here for a while and hopefully they'll stay. For self-contained, increase the stipend to $15,000 because then if it's a new teacher, we're right about with new teacher, everything out the door around $50,000, so high 40s, low 50s. So you add another 15 on that. Now a young teacher coming out of U of A and a U or ASU could make 65 or more thousand right out of high school, but out of college, and that's a little bit more attractive. And then if they've been teaching for a while and they're coming into us at say 50, 60,000 with their experience and their degrees and things like that, that puts it now at 75, 80,000, and that puts us more in that category of what a contracted teacher is probably getting paid. I would say these teachers that get 100, 105, 110,000 we're paying, I know they're not seeing 105, 110. I know that for a fact. What I'm upset about with the contracted agencies is they're not telling the teachers how much we're paying them. They're not telling us how much they're paying the teachers. And that to me is very unfair. And so I'd like that at some point, hopefully it will be addressed, that has to be disclosed. Because if they're taking 25% off the top of that and the teacher's making $75,000 with a contracted agency, which I don't believe there's any benefits and there's no retirement, now they can work for us for $75,000 and have that. So that's, I think, going to put us a little bit closer. And then also, I think Kaylee would like to have a little possible leeway with the ability to work with them on their experience and their education level. So if we're like real close with an employee, can we get them over the top? I don't know how we would do that and make sure it's done legally and correct, but she'd like to find a way to have maybe a little window there to say that this is the range instead of maybe an exact number. And we'd have to check with legal to make sure that's all okay. But sometimes it could be down to, it's $1,000 difference between us and another district and they choose the other one over us. So those are some things I think we need to consider. If we did that based off of what Leah gave me, as far as teachers, it would be about $35,000 for our resource, current special ed teachers, and then it'd be another $30,000 for the self-contained, and that would put you at about a $65,000 increase. But we do already know if we're paying a teacher $65,000, typically and we have to pay someone 120, we're pretty much right there anyway, and it's going to a contracted teacher instead of our own. So just something to think about.
So question, if we, because the hard to fill stipend for other areas is 5,000, right?
Yes.
Okay, so is there any sense of whether other teachers will look at this and say, well, gee, you have money for these teachers? Do they realize that special ed is a more demanding?
Yes, they do. And in our, when we talk about the budget here coming up, that team identified in survey data that they support pretty overwhelmingly doing something with special ed hard to fill stipends to avoid contracted teachers. So I don't think there would be pushback on that. And our response is, we'll help you get that degree, and there'll always be a job here, and you can make a lot more money. So I think people in the teacher world know that the SPED degree is hard. It's time consuming to get, and you're an expert in a field that is unique, and you should be compensated accordingly for that.
It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
When Kaylee and I brought this to the board back in the fall, your request that we would bring it to meet and confer, which I did, and actually the reaction from the teachers was, we need special education teachers, we need that assistance in the classroom, the students need that support, so their concern at the time was, where are we getting the money because of the issues with the budget, but great feedback from Meet and Confer. I was able to go the next time when they were going to discuss it more because I had a department meeting, but my original presentation went over well.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing that because I remember there was concern about unfairness or, not treating teachers equally, but in the end, we said it's hard to find teachers with this level of credentials, and it's because of all the extra input that it requires an investment from that person. And so I think, like you said, they need to be valued for that specialty that they have.
If you just go back a couple slides, if you take that number out, and you add 65 in, it's a nice net gain for us, right? Yeah. So I'm not saying I can't predict it's going to work perfectly, but it's something I think, to keep the SPED teachers we have, and they're excellent teachers. Some have been with us a long, long time. That investment alone in what's available out there, I think is worth it. So again, they're not voting on tonight, just a proposal, but I'll take feedback, tonight, or if you want to reach out to me individually, and we'll consider that before we bring it back for a vote in the future. Okay?
Makes me feel a lot more comfortable knowing that at Meet and Confer,
Sure.
the rest of the staff agree.
Yeah.
I like that.
And, the teachers said, because when there's inconsistency in the classroom, then it affects the students, it affects the general education teacher, it affects everyone. So, of course, they want to see someone in the position throughout the year, which has not happened both at the elementary school and the high school this year.
And I love that we're offering a pathway for any teachers that want a pay raise like this, or that would want access to the stipend. We're offering to help them get there. I have a lot to say on this because I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings about it. Outsourced teachers, you mentioned they come and go, which is exactly why, another reason why I think we would want to avoid them. And I've been against paying those for-profit businesses off of our teachers' backs for a long time because I actually did some personal research. I know someone whose husband owns one of those companies, and we went on their website, and they pay the teachers $60,000. So they're charging us $114, $120, and paying a teacher $60. We could pay them better than that and have an in-house, build a relationship with this person, offer benefits. And so I think that should be part of what we do, is we can disclose that we know that these companies not only aren't beating us that much in the pay, but they don't offer all of the benefits, they don't offer the relationship that, I think some employees would prefer to have. I love the creativity of talking about doing like a kind of a co-op with Cave Creek. I think that's brilliant, and not only that, but I think that it could actually open the doors to us increasing enrollment, because like you said, Scottsdale doesn't have a level D, so if we did have some kind of access, we'd probably pull some students.
And I said, how about we, we share a plumber and a roofer too, while we're at it, right? We can find between the two districts enough work for them and split the cost. So, yeah, I just need to connect more with them, and if, you know, so hopefully they would be interested. You know, another option, you know, we just got to look at other small districts that are in the same situation. So we're always trying to think outside the box. Getting that done can be a little more challenging, and I think they're us like 10 years ago. They're not where we're at yet. They're having declining enrollment. They're closing 3 schools and all that, but they're still probably where we were 10 years ago. And so I don't know if it's as urgent yet, and that's what I need just to continue to talk with them. But he's been very open to hearing us, and hopefully we can get some together with him or someone else.
Yeah,
Okay?
I think that's excellent, and I appreciate the creativity. I also appreciate the finding of the funding. What funding are we using to get some of these reimbursements?
Have to be, well, we get some from, you know, our SPED funding and reimbursement. Oh, you're talking about the out-of-placement reimbursements?
Yes.
The state. So I've reached out to the county, and the county the problem is that there's not a lot of people who know about this kind of situation. That's what I found. There's very few people. So there's someone at the Department of Ed who's excellent, and she's always answered the phone, and she's been great to reimburse us. So I couldn't be happier there. At the county, there's just not a lot of people who know a lot about this, and so there is one gentleman we've been working with who's been good. What we have to be careful of is, you know, if the county reimburses, the county has said we can reimburse the transportation costs, okay? But if the state reimburses the transportation costs too, we gotta send one back. So that's what we're keeping. I've asked the finance team to keep a real close eye on what are we getting and what is it for, so we don't run into that. And I'm hoping they'll kind of work together and be able to make that happen. But we're in a very unique situation. Like, our situation is very unique compared to pretty much anywhere else in the state. So a lot of it is finding who can help us and build a relationship with them. And we've done a lot with that this year. I mean, most years we'd be lucky if we got $75,000 in high-cost child money back, and if we get $250 this year, that'd be great, right? That'd be fantastic.
And then I guess my last question for the moment is, why would we do a stipend instead of a position pay raise for that position? And I'll follow that up with, my reason for asking that is because with the ESI teachers that we've brought back through their retirement program, I know that they take part of a stipend. So then if we ended up hiring a teacher in a special ed position from one of these third-party companies, would that teacher qualify for the stipend and the company then take 40%?
No, the stipend would only be to FH employees, so
Okay,
you wouldn't have to
in-house.
worry about that. The stipend is a lot of time easier because in the event that you did have to reduce, like, say, salaries, or you're not reducing their actual base salary, you're reducing the stipend, we can no longer do. And yes, it's a pay cut, and yes, it hurts. But it gives us, I think it just gives us a little flexibility. Also, when you're, I lost it, I'm sorry. I've been talking for a while.
I guess,
I apologize.
My thought is, I think we would maybe get more applicants if that initial, this is how much we're paying for this position, was high enough that, because most districts aren't paying more than what we're paying. So it's not the districts, it's these for-profit businesses, and they're not paying that much.
But I
more.
think Kaylee can advertise that well in there,
Okay.
that between classroom site fund money,
Total compensation.
total compensation, plus our benefits are really good in this district. I don't see that being an issue. I just, it's one, I mean, it still affects them positively. What I was gonna say earlier that I lost my train of thought on was, if they go into retirement, right, it's their last 3 years and they're building up their retirement, it still counts the same, whether it's in your base salary or it's a stipend. It's your total compensation over your best 3 years over the last 10. So it wouldn't matter to them as much, I don't think, as long as they get the money and it's not, maybe distributed at the end of the year. That could be a factor. So if it's distributed throughout the year equally, It's still one paycheck that has that same number in it, but just gives you some flexibility. If for whatever reason you had to pull back on hard-to-fill stipends, you could, or reduce them without doing a full reduce in salary. I guess there's multiple ways to do it.
Yeah.
And the stipend is a visible recognition of, we recognize this is a hard to fill and you're doing a special
But
need,
so
so
would
it's
be
a
the
kind of.
pay, the appropriate
Well,
pay
yeah.
for a qualified person. And my thought is if we bump that position up significantly, we'll get the best, most qualified person in the country because we'll be the only school district paying that kind of rate.
Yeah, I think to Dr. Rakowski's point is that when teachers are looking at base pay, they're looking at, I'm a teacher, you're a teacher, we're in the salary schedule, we have this, I have the same education level, I have the same experience, so base-wise, I should be at that same level. But now, because we're recognizing that job is hard to fill, it's a lot of
But
extra
it's not,
paperwork.
it's just not hard to fill, it's the qualifications that go into it. It's like a doctor versus a brain surgeon, like a general practice
Well,
doctor versus a brain surgeon.
it's a different degree. I
It's
mean,
recognized immediately.
yes, and a lot of our
the
teachers
difference.
do have master's degrees, they just don't have it in special ed. So yes, the degree itself is one thing, the specific job they do, but it's also, a lot of that hard to fill too can go towards recognition of the additional paperwork, with IEP caseloads and the extra time that goes into that. So you all can decide how you want to do it. It's going to come out of M&O
I'm
the
really
same
glad
way.
you're protecting
Yeah.
the stipend from those companies though, because it
Well, they
hurt to
wouldn't
see,
get it.
it did hurt to see when Denise Matus, her stipend for doing the clubs was partially taken by ESI, which I know it's a little different because it's.
ESA is completely different. That is them doing a return to work or rehire from retirement. That's a different situation. So these contracted employees would not qualify for any, because they tell us what we have to pay. So it would have nothing to do with with our stipends. Yeah, okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
As a newer school board member, maybe others know the answers to this question. So with the stipend, is it front-end loaded? I mean, in other words, is it paid to the teacher, like you said, maybe monthly over, or?
I think it'd be either.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah. I think they can
Or-
take it, I think I don't, Kaylee's not here, but I'm pretty sure since it's part of it's not a performance-based pay thing. So like performance pay, they have to earn that at the end of the year and then they get a check.
Right.
For the stipend, it's like a hard to fill, it's part of I'm pretty certain it's every check throughout the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was, because with the clubs, it was different, it was because they had to do the.
Because they have to
put in
show
the
they
paperwork,
did
yes.
the work.
But with the
Yes.
positions,
Yeah.
it was put into the
Yes.
pay.
Yes.
And I prefer to leave it like this because you're doing contracts for everybody. Everybody has the same kind of education. So I would feel bad. There's many teachers that have a master's degree. It's just not in special ed.
Correct.
So if you leave the salary as is for everybody the same for whatever position they have, how many years they've taught, but put in the stipends, as long as the rest of the people understand why and feel comfortable with it, this makes a lot
And it
more
gives
sense.
you, here's the other thing it gives you. It gives you the ability to raise that later without raising the whole base salary too. That's another factor you gotta look at. So if you could have sped teachers in a special category of the salary schedule, but I think it'd just complicate the process a little bit more. So this would allow you to say in 3 years, we want to bump it to, 7,000. And you can do that for a cost of living index, increase or whatever, without having to touch the whole salary schedule, which can be complicated. So I think it just gives you more flexibility, but whatever you decide is up to you. It's going to come out of the same account regardless.
I do
So-
appreciate the,
Yeah.
the thought that was put into this and the confidence it takes to make a bump like that so that we can get someone that we.
Okay.
that we need.
One other kind of general question, can you give us a ballpark? So what percentage of our total budget goes to special ed?
Well, that would be 16%.
16
Well,
overall?
no, it'd be higher than that, it'd be 20%, because you gotta
Wow.
factor in the other side of it. And that's one of the things that's hurt us quite a
Yeah.
bit with our budget, and when we talk about budget reductions, our sped costs are really, really high for a district of our size,
So it's
okay?
20%, but for the number of students is like 5% of our student population, or what?
We got about 20%. Yeah, so it's almost,
20% of our students too?
yeah,
Oh,
maybe 19,
oh,
yeah.
wow.
Oh,
We have a lot of sped costs, like and that's why the state, I think, is working with me a lot, is they're
Okay.
looking at this going, these are really high costs for a district of your size, we're gonna
Yeah.
try to help you out.
Okay.
But in the end, as we know, I have no option here, so these are costs that have to be
Right.
paid, okay?
I have one last question.
Yeah.
Is the stipend prorated? In other words, if we had a sped teacher leave and then we hire a
Yes.
sped teacher?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
No.
yep, they wouldn't get 5,000 for the last month of the year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I think I'm here again.
On to budget discussion,
Yeah,
another
all
good
right.
topic.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna talk about this because I'm leading this discussion with stakeholders about where do they see and where do they feel the most obvious places to go after some of these reductions, okay? So let me walk you back a little bit here as we go through, so we have that. If you go back to 2022, so I can't speak to 2020 and 2021 because I wasn't here. And actually 22, I can't really, there was not much available to me because the budget was already done in May or April the year before, and so that was already set when I arrived. So I've had 2 budget cycles that I've been here for, okay? And in the first budget cycle, we had an increase in students from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So Lillian, you were here at the time, Madison, you were here at the time, and we were feeling a little momentum, right? We were feeling pretty good about that. And we kind of took that victory lap a little too early because, again, it's just, the numbers will just, in our community for the last 20 some years, they just keep dropping. So we felt good, but we also had momentum, right? There was a shift in leadership and management. There was a shift in the school structures. We went from K2 to, or K3 to a K5, and we brought in new signature programs. We did upgrades to our facilities. And so we were feeling really good about things. And what our worry was, is when you're rebranding and you're kind of going all in on let's really try to make this run, and say a lot of kids come and you don't have enough teachers, or you have massive class sizes, or if you don't do it well, that reputation will be, real quickly shattered. So it's kind of like a new restaurant opening up and they can't serve fast enough, they can't run effectively, you may not come back, right? And so we really, with the momentum we had in 22, we really wanted to kind of maintain what we were doing and give it a year to see if we could see any growth. And that year we just, traditional losses that we've seen in the past. This many seniors out the door, this many kindergartners coming in. So after that year, that was the year we made a run, we started budget cutting last year. So all of you that were here last year, we brought to you different tiers of budget cuts. And one of the things your request was at the time was no cuts from the classroom, which we respected, and we did our best to make that work, okay? We made budget cuts in maintenance, administration, site, classified staff, some unfilled positions that we just decided not to fill, and we got off our books completely. And we did that last year, and now this will be my 3rd budget cycle. And now I'm going to come to you and say we need to make some drastic shifts now because the numbers are not improving. They're staying pretty much the way they've been for a while. Now, when you look at these numbers, I do want to point out there are some bright spots. Like there has been times where we've had a lot of kids come into our district. You saw earlier, someone mentioned we've had a lot from Scottsdale coming in recently. There's some bright spots over the last 3 years. But what we can't get past is that senior kindergarten count. That is the one we just cannot get past, and I've tried everything I can think of, but there's just not enough kids in that age range to make up for the seniors out the door, okay? So in 2022, we had 1,308 kids, and in 2025, we're sitting at 1,103 when I did a screenshot. I think today it was 1,110 it fluctuates as the year goes on. So these are fluid numbers as well, because as you see, every board report, there's different enrollment numbers by 1 or 2 or 5 or something like that. So if you take the number 1308, 1103, over the last 3 years, we've seen a drop in about 205 kids. I think that number would be, I think it potentially could have been a lot higher. I think the things we've done have helped. I just think we were 3 or 4 years too late on some of the things we tried to do, okay? And going back to when I arrived here, I was very clear with the governing board at the time that there was a lot of things I don't know if we could fix. I was very clear with them at the time about that, because some of this stuff probably we could have been doing years and years back, and it just didn't happen. So if you look at the kindergartners and senior phenomenon over the last 3 years, it's a minus 211. Okay, that's just straight up numbers. And if you look at the other one, it was 203. So they're they go pretty hand in hand here. So when you take 200 kids out of your student count, it's over $1 million, right? That you just don't have anymore in budget capacity because those kids are no longer here. And I just don't expect, with birth rates where I'm seeing them, every school district seeing declining enrollment, I don't expect this to magically shift in any direction, so positively that we can afford to not make these kind of decisions. So next steps are, we've created a budget team that has about 20 people on it, stakeholders from every site. So we have a parent, we have a teacher, and we have a classified employee from each site. I did offer Ms. Matus at the preschool if she wanted to attend, but we don't expect any cuts there. It's a tuition-based school, and the only cuts we would be able to do there would be at the special ed level, which would be like paras or something like that, which Leah would do that with us. But it'd be a very small number. It's not, they don't have a lot of people there. It's a pretty small campus. But they're full, which is a good thing. Like, we're literally full over there with our students and our staffing that we have. So that's a good thing. Do we need to look at the cost of the preschool? Possibly, raising that. We're very affordable, which is nice. But remember, the goal of that preschool, other than providing our children with great experiences and meeting the needs of our special needs kids at those ages, one of the other sides of that is it's a way to get them into kindergarten here, and that's when we start getting paid for those. Remember, we don't get full funding for kindergartners either, so we only get half of the funding for every kindergartner. We have to make up the other half with the M&O override, all right? That's the way we make up for that other half. So when you look at the ADM of our students and you say, okay, well, we're at 1110, well, the ADM is going to be lower than that because those 55 to 60 kindergartens, we can only count them as 30, those kindergartners, not as the full number, okay? And we don't get money for preschool unless it's somehow special ed related, so that's why it's tuition based, okay? Just so you understand all that. So the budget team has met twice and made up of parents, certified, classified, district admin, and also students. All right, I wanted a couple students on there because I think their voice should be heard. I've always been a student voice guy, and we have 2 from my advisory board, superintendent advisory board, that are on there, which has been great to have them there. Okay, so we will bring a recommendation to you on February 19th. Give you 2 weeks to take a look at that and hope for a vote on 3-5. We have kind of a time machine here a little bit with special meetings. If you want to carve out more time, you can certainly do that as a board. If you need more time from 3-5 to 3-17, because 17th is when we like to get contracts out to staff. So that's the earliest that she can do that. So we have some time to look at that. We do need to make some serious reductions, because one of the things that this budget team is noticing is that the class size numbers are just so low that is an area that we just need to address. Okay, for anyone listening, anyone who's taking a look at this conversation tonight, we have to understand that there are different buckets of money. Okay, so you have your capital money, which is not for salaries and benefits. It is for it's for buying new products, it's for, technology, textbooks, things like that go to tangible items. And we have a healthy account there, okay? We have, I try to keep it at about 1.5 years worth of capital and savings, okay? That's where I try to keep it at. With the land sale, it'll be even more, because if we get 10 to 12 million, which is what the estimate we got as a board earlier, that will all be able to be used for capital and building repairs and things like that. So in time, the district's going to be in a really good place when it comes to capital and building repairs, okay? We also have received approval for our roofs to be repaired by the school facility board, so I'm super excited about that. We've been working with our former director of maintenance, Rich Dobson, who's been coming in 1 day a week or 1 day every 2 weeks to work on school facility board stuff, and he did get us approved for that. The problem is they don't have any money. So we're on the list, and we can start doing some of the processes. But I would say we're at least 1 to 2 years out of seeing that actual happen.
What's the
But,
projected cost of that?
millions, I'm imagining. Repair of all the roofs and repair of all of them,
buildings.
and weatherization we got approved for. It's a huge, huge number. So this is.
The school facilities board reimburses that, right? That's why you're saying it's a while out?
Yes, but what I've learned in that, which is unique, is we can, when you purchase it, you're purchasing out of an account where the state knows it's coming back from school facility board, so you don't have to take it out of your capital and then have it reimbursed. Yeah, that was new to me. The county explained that to me, and it was pretty fascinating to see. It's on certain things where they feel very strong that the money is guaranteed, because if the school facility board says, we're gonna give you this, you can write the purchase order to that, out of that account, and then it'll reimburse directly to that. And I saw that with a reimbursement, because I got a reimbursement for us that was from 2019 that was not closed out, and I closed it out, and I was like, $300,000, and then, yeah, it was, like, yeah, we already paid for that, we're just, you don't see that.
And the
So-
state board covers the whole cost or just partial?
Well, that's another issue.
Okay.
So for the high school, middle school campus, yes, they will cover the cost. At the elementary school, because it's on state trust land, we're responsible for 47% of the cost.
Okay.
So now again, I haven't seen 47%. So, and don't quote, it could be 46, it's close to that. But what we do know is to replace those roofs, weatherization, repair, replace, it's gonna be a huge number, right? So we know that going in. And having this now look like, hopefully it'll be paid for by school facility board, I'm proud of that, because our district is trying to, and we as a team are trying to save our community as much money as we can, and this will be a huge savings to us. So the 47% will come out of land sale money when we get to that point to cover those costs. So that's how it'll be paid for. Because by the time we're in queue to have this work done, the land sale should be complete, and there should be money in the account to do that. That's our hope, okay?
So we're in queue, you're saying it's 1 year or 2 out?
Yes,
Before we can even
talking to our
start.
representative, she said that once you're approved, it's gonna be when we get more money, and as that waiting list dwindles, you move up that list. So I'm guessing 2 years is a guess, but who knows? Maybe they'll come back with a lot of school facility board money and we're next year, but we'll find out. But that's good news. That's what I'm saying. For a long-term plan of dealing with roofs, that's good news. Okay? Again, I'm not gonna take a picture of that until I see the money, but I'm happy, and I think you should know that we're working hard to do that.
We're 90th in line.
Oh, 90th in line. Okay.
Right.
It's not bad.
How many do they average? How many do they turn
He
over a
says.
month or every?
Well, I'm just thinking of how many school districts there are, how many schools there are.
Yeah.
90's not a bad number. I was thinking triple or quadruple digits, so, all right.
Find the money first.
Yeah, I'll take it. So contracts will go out on the 17th once this is all done. We anticipate a lot of the reductions can come from attrition. I'm not gonna say all. Because that's fluid too, right? In one moment, a teacher may say we're returning, and the next minute they may not, or vice versa. So we're monitoring that. We've been surveying them and talking to them for the last month and a half about who's planning on doing what. When you look at the class size, there's two schools that really stand out with class sizes being very, very low, and that's McDowell Mountain and Fountain Hills High School. So those are areas we're going to have to address. When we look at the elementary school, you just have some class sizes, which are nice, and I want to be very clear to the community. I'd love to keep these classes. I think they're beneficial to the kids. I think it's beneficial to the teachers, and I feel really bad that these numbers have to shift, but they're unrealistic, okay? So 17, 16 in a kindergarten class, we just can't continue to do that. We've done that for a long time in this district. We've prided ourselves on small class sizes, but we're not seeing I'm not seeing growth because of that. I'm not seeing people running to here and saying, because you have small class sizes, I'm going to come to Fountain Hills. So those are some areas we're going to have to reduce, okay? K1, 2 all have really low numbers in the teens, high teens, but teens, okay? To give you a comparison in kindergarten, in Scottsdale District, they will open a new section of kindergarten at 27, okay? So, and it has to maintain that, I believe, for, I don't know, a period of time to make sure that there's not a drop here or there. So 27 is the cutoff for kindergarten. As the grades go up, they do go up. I've seen in elementary schools in 5th grade, class size as high as 35. I don't expect that with us. I expect it to be closer to, probably 30 at worst case scenario. So there is some room there to look at. I'm just being honest with all you so you know what we're looking at. The middle school is a tougher situation because they're really working on minimal staff as it is, and they're doing a great job. But they are on minimal staff because the Innovate 21 program has been really popular. And so over 100, right around 100 or so kids are in that program. And so those teachers are seeing, because they also have to teach a regular ed section, their numbers are much higher than the other sites. So I don't see a lot of reductions at that school. There may be some smaller ones, but I don't see that the class size there has that opportunity. And then at the high school, there is some room for class size. The class size are really small. And part of that is the numbers are down. When I was principal there, we had close to 600 kids in 2017. We're in person right now at 330. Okay, so it's a very low number. And the staffing has not shifted much in that time frame, right? Because we've been trying to maintain our staff. That has been a goal of the board, is to keep these great teachers in positions, keep them here. The kids benefit from this. There's no doubt the kids benefit from small class size. We know that for a fact. But there are some that are just really, really small that we need to start looking at. Now, before we say to the high school that their class sizes are really, really small, we have to factor in that we still have to offer calculus, okay? We still have to offer AP classes and things of that nature. And so in a small district, those classes can be very small. The trimester has also reduced their class size because they don't have the same set of students all year anymore. So they're seeing them for 60 days, and then they're seeing a different group of kids maybe for 60 days. And so that has also reduced it. And also Arizona State classes. Although it's reducing maybe the numbers of students in a specific class, it's not reducing the number of teachers needed because we make the kids take that as part of the day with a teacher. So the teacher may, instead of having 4 sections of U.S. history, they may now have 3 sections of U.S. history and an FHU period where they're monitoring and working with kids in all social studies classes. So that doesn't have a huge impact on the overall numbers. It may just on their schedule a little bit. So those are some areas. I do think there are some opportunities at the admin level as well to look at reductions. We are a small district. However, the community spoke very loudly last year, and I say that positively because they're passionate about their schools and and they handled it very, very well when they spoke to me about their concerns with splitting the principal at the middle and the high school, and that was just a non-starter in every direction. It was a non-starter with the staff, it was a non-starter with the board, and it was a non-starter with parents. So it was, we didn't do that, okay? One of the deans is paid out of a grant, I believe, partially. Some of that comes out of a grant. So we do have 2 dean positions that are there to support. I will say that the team that is looking at the budget, one of the questions was, do you support reduction of site administration? And it was overwhelmingly no. Almost 75% of respondents in that group said they want to try as best as possible to maintain the administration, because I think they feel that there's some consistency there, and they're worried about behavior and discipline problems happening if those positions are cut, okay? So there's some room there, and there's some room in transportation. In fact, transportation is going to have to make reductions because our budget is less, and we cannot continue to do what we've done in the past. So transportation is going to have to reduce. There's already some ideas on the table. One is we made the decision earlier this year, we are only going to EVIT in the mornings starting next year. That is our plan. We've had the students register that way, and they are all getting the classes with no issues. So that's good. That'll save us quite a bit of money traveling out there twice a day, okay? Another area we could look at is combining the buses. That's another one that is probably pretty easy to do, of having, instead of 2 different routes every day of K-5 and 612, is having K-12 buses, okay? Small towns do it all the time across the country. You know, you live in a small little community, one bus picks you up and everyone's on the same bus. One idea we had from a volunteer that's working with us was, you know, if we did that, possibly maybe have seniors who ride that bus do that for their internship, is, you know, be a bus monitor, you know, sit with the elementary kids in that area and make sure that they report any kind of behaviors or issues and help the driver with that. And I think that's a pretty innovative idea. You know, we want these kids to be leaders, and we want to use that internship opportunity. Might be an easy way to do that, is giving them a little leadership job of that and building relationships with those kids. So again, these are just ideas. I'm not saying we're going to do them, so I don't want any panic, but we'll take feedback from stakeholders throughout the process. But when we're looking at having to reduce by that 200 less students, we're just going to have to make some tough choices here down the stretch. Okay, so I'll take questions at this time.
Specifically around the idea of combining buses to K-12, do all of the schools start school at the same time?
Well, we would be able to if we did that, which would be a benefit, because the elementary would be able to start earlier and get out earlier, which I think would help the teachers a lot. I think they would feel that's a perk. And for parents, I don't see it being an issue because we have the before school care anyway. So I don't see that being a huge issue, but yes, that would be a pretty easy switch if we had those buses all as one grade level.
Okay.
I rode a K through 12 bus, and I mean, it does come with issues, I guess. There are going to be parents that are concerned about it, but at the same time, you know, my mom decided to drive me to school a lot of days when she could, you know, so
Sure.
in the end, we can put some responsibility back on our families if they choose not to use our free services like the bus.
And our buses are not overly packed at this time, so I think that is down anyway, not just here, but I've seen it, you know, in other states as I've been on traveling and vacations, where I've seen, you know, news stories about, you know, reductions in buses and bus riders and things of that nature. So that's probably, you know, you're reducing now 2 routes every day in the morning and in the afternoon down to 1 route in the morning, 1 route in the afternoon. So the one thing I have to check on, and this is where I've been really making sure we check with multiple sources before we do anything, is if we reduce the number of miles we drive and reduce the number of routes we drive, does that have an impact on our budget, okay? So I've asked 5 different people, and they've all said it does not. But the one group I've yet to hear back from is the Department of Ed. So I have a call set up with them soon, and I'm going to get something from them that says, yes, you're fine. If you were to reduce, it's not going to affect your budget or what your total capacity is.
We're
So
offering the same number of routes, just less,
miles.
yes, less trips.
So I just got to double check it. And so once I have that, I'll have spoke to 3 different CFOs, the county, the state. So I feel like if everyone says that and it's wrong, then I don't know what else I can do on that one. I'll check with everybody. So that'll be, hopefully I'll have an answer for you in the next week. But I feel very confident at this time that it will not have an impact on our budget. Yeah.
So the question I
Yes.
have is, has anybody talked to the people that drive? I mean, I've
Yes,
seen
I have.
really long lines of people picking up kids, and will this have any impact on them?
Oh, are you talking about parents or the drivers themselves?
No, parents.
Well, they're part of this group. I understand that's a small focus group. So yes, if the decision is we need to start making some serious decisions about transportation, we will send that. We'll send information out to get some feedback. But, once you get through the first 2 days of school, that line gets a lot faster. And I always tell parents, please be patient the first 2 days. Don't go on Facebook and say how bad it is. Like, we told you up front, it's gonna be bad. And then they make movies about this.
Well, and
It's-
honestly, if you
yeah.
just look at the parents that are taking their kids to Scottsdale, it's much worse there. The
Yes.
lines are longer.
They are, and so I appreciate the question. Yes, we will try to get as much feedback. But what I'm telling you is we're not gonna be able to make everyone happy. That's the reality of budget reductions. So we have to look at what is our most essential, what do we need to do? And we're doing this now so that we don't have issues down the road. Like, we're trying to be proactive here and say, look, next year, if we do this, it's putting us more online for the reality of where our budget's going to be. And therefore, we can continue to plan for less students, but we have to make up for some of the lack of reductions over the past and start doing that now. So like I said, I made some pretty big reductions last year, you're all aware of that, and that helped, but we need to make more again this year to be able to get there. The other thing that's gonna come up is, that will also factor into the budget, is the M&O override. And I double checked on that because I get a lot of information in this job, and I have to double and triple check it to make sure it's right, for me to feel comfortable with saying it publicly. And what I have learned on the M&O override is that we actually need to go out for it next year. Because if we don't, the following year, it will start a reduction in our M&O budget capacity.
It's gonna be 2026.
I'm talking about next November, 9 months.
Oh,
or however long.
2025.
Yes. Because I wasn't here when that last override passed, but we double checked it and verified it was in November of '21. And so in November of '26, if there's not a new one in place, it'll start reducing by 1/3 over the next, I believe, 3 years.
Right.
So for us, projected right now, that would be about $500,000 each year for a total of 1.5 million on top of what we need to do this year. So that is something you'll have to make a decision on as a board here coming up soon. We have till May, I believe, to make that decision. But now that we've verified that it is actually up at the end of next fiscal year, we need to, in my opinion, go for that, or else we're gonna have more reductions down the road, okay? Other questions I can answer?
I have a lot to say.
Yes,
So I'm gonna start at the top of my notes and kind of just go down.
sure.
So with our student count, we are seeing declining enrollment similar to all the districts around us, but I
Correct.
remember mention of at least 700 kids of ours that are going to Scottsdale schools.
No, that is incorrect.
So do we have a number of how many of our
The last,
Mountain Hills locals?
yes, the
are-
last number I saw in Scottsdale was around 300. I have not seen a number this year. I can reach out to their administration. They're very good at giving it to me. There's no question about it.
They're probably proud of it.
No, but I can tell you this, a lot of those kids are in My guess is a lot of them are gonna be aging out soon because they're kids that have been in the system for a while. I know the kindergarten numbers to Anasazi have been low the last few years. I've checked and I've been on top of it. And we have not had a massive exodus at any time in the last 3 years I've been here to those schools. Where
I
we-
have to disagree with you because my age group, my kids are in elementary school age, and so those are the parents that I'm meeting at the baseball practices and
But
at
in
the
the
soccer.
last 2.5 years?
In the last year alone, I know of at least 7 students that went to Scottsdale schools.
In what grades?
Well, one family
Middle
has
school?
5 kids, and so
Middle
they-
school or elementary?
Elementary. I
Okay.
think their oldest is
Yeah.
in middle school now.
Yeah,
But
I can
then
get you
the
the
other one
data,
has-
I'll get you the data, I watch it pretty closely, it's not a huge number, the number of moving out of the town is larger, and so I can
I
get you
just
that.
don't want us to have a defeatist attitude when it comes to
No.
overall enrollment, because I think that there are definitely kids here that we should get back, because again, I think that we are the best school district.
Yeah,
Did those
I-
parents share why they're going to
Yes, in
Scott?
fact, I have a whole list.
So share that with me, we can have a
Yeah.
conversation. But what I'm telling you is that we're not seeing, and I predicted this when we started this transformation a few years ago. It takes time to build back a reputation and some trust in the school system, right? I said that when I started. It's gonna take some time. You're not going to overnight just solve every problem that's there. The academic side is in a really good place, okay? 2C schools, now 2As, right? So that's good. The signature programs are very innovative and they're very well liked, and the kids aren't really leaving for that reason. The free before school care is a great option for parents to be able to drop off without having to worry about, hey, I gotta take my kids, so I'm gonna stop in Scottsdale and drop them off and pick them up later. There's a lot of work we've done to lower and stop the bleeding of enrollment out. But the problem we're seeing is a lot of the students we see that still will leave, it's because they already had siblings there. And so when the last kid comes through and they're coming through preschool and they're going to kindergarten, and they already have a 5th grader or a 7th grader in another school, they're probably gonna take the 3rd or 4th kid there because it makes sense to do so. So we fight for every kid. Every realtor in town has my number. They call me. Hey, I got a family, can you show the schools? I'll go up there. I've done it before. We definitely work hard to try to get every kid in, but we live in a state where there is school choice and there's options, and there are a lot of options out there, so, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm definitely pro school choice, because I think that just encourages us to be better.
Yeah,
Like
I understand
said,
the
showcase
competition
our
piece, I
strengths.
understand that. I'm just saying, we're competing too, though,
Yes.
at a very high level. But I question sometimes, like, when we play some of these schools that are prepping for college, right? They're a prep school, prepping for school. Here, you're gonna get your first year of college done for free.
Yeah, and I
So
think
why,
it's the best we-
why would you do that? And that's what we haven't been able to get past is, despite the programs, despite the achievement increases, we're still not seeing droves of people coming back. Now, you saw the numbers, we talk about, we lost some to Scottsdale, how many we brought in this year? A lot, okay, a lot. So it evens out, and that's the problem. If you go back to 2017 and pull up old video of Dr. Sweeney sitting up here, his favorite part of the meeting was the enrollment, because he'd say, all right, we had 55 kids move, all these, and we got a net 2. And he always found that very humorous, okay? That's how it's been forever. And when we go back to, and I mentioned this a lot when I went out and spoke to different groups in the last couple of years, if you go back to the founding of Fountain Hill School District, we've always had an issue with, from the very beginning, of people who did not come to school here. Okay, I got an article 20 years ago that says 900 kids don't go to school in the district. Back then, our enrollment's probably about 2,500, so that's a big number, right? So it's been like that for a long time because we're just in a location-wise, we have a lot of competition. We have Basis, Notre Dame Prep, Desert Mountain, Mountain View, ESA homeschool, micro schools, online schools.
Well, again, I think that
Yeah.
all of that can work towards our benefit, because I have been seeing a lot more of these micro schools popping up. In fact, there's businesses that are like call and learn how to start a micro school today. You know, like they're pushing it. And I think there is an atmosphere, ever since COVID, right? There was an atmosphere that happened where parents started to distrust the education system, which was not good. It wasn't a good thing for anybody in education or in society. So we have a different like atmosphere here where because we're so small and because we each know all of the students and things like that, we can be that micro school. Like we're the closest to a micro school you're gonna get when you go to
So at my
school.
last not my last coffee, 2 coffees ago, we were talking about AI, and I asked Google Gemini, didn't know what it was gonna say. I just said, you know, is Fallon Hills School District a good school district? Should I send my kids there? And it came back with, you know, Fallon Hills is an A-rated district. They have, and what it said, which I thought was very interesting, it said it has a private school feel in a public school environment, and it found that somewhere.
Capitalize that.
Well, I agree, but again, when I have students who still go to competitor schools with the opportunity to come play in your hometown, play with your friends in sports, get your first year of college done, be in advanced classes, we have everything you need, and people still choose to go somewhere else. That's the part I struggle with, because again, it's not academic, it's not class size, it's not the teachers, it's not the leadership, it's some of it's athletics, which I think is very misguided, and I've been very public about that. You know, we had the best player in the entire state in soccer in 2017. She's Gatorade Player of the Year. That's proof. She's the best player. Stayed home, won 3 state titles, and went to Oklahoma, full ride scholarship. She didn't need to play at a larger school because you're going to get your scholarship in club and those types of atmospheres. So there is some people who are misguided by that, and that does hurt us too. But what I think is still what's been missing here for a long time is that pride in your hometown.
Yeah, and coming from the community.
But the
too,
kids
I think
have it. See, that's what I'm saying. You talk to these kids, they have it. They love their community. They had these options to leave and go, and they didn't. They stayed home, and they're proud of that, and they're proud of the work that they're doing. They really are. And it's hard to overcome some of the, you know, I guess issues of the past when things are really good. So the bottom line is, despite efforts and despite what we've done, the reality is that we still are going to see for the next foreseeable few years about 100 kids graduate and about 50 come in kindergarten, and it's going to. And I don't know if it'll ever bottom out, because what happens in this town is people can afford to buy homes when their kids are in middle and high school, and so that inflates those grades. But at the lower levels, it's really hard for a young family to do that, and now we're seeing, you know, lower birth rates and things like that. So it's factoring in. Okay.
What I have to say is, I have spoken to several families that have come back from Scottsdale. They cannot say enough good things, to the point where they're talking to some of their friends and saying, you know, you really should be coming here. And I'm sure you've seen the same thing.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
all the
surplus.
schools, though, that we're talking about are excellent. So like I said, I'll never say a bad thing about the schools around us. They're good schools, but so are we. And so what we're trying to do with the signature programs and the flexibility and the things we're doing is differentiate ourselves from them. You know, you can come to school here and knock out 6-7 credits of math. You can't do that in another school district unless you're doing it in summer school or you're doing online classes and things like that. So it's just, the problem is the age of our town keeps growing up and the age of our families keeps going down. And so even if you had every kid in town, every eligible kid who's school age, our whole district would still be smaller than Desert Mountain High School.
I think that's a strength, though.
I do too.
Yeah.
But I need, in order to
Because you can
keep
go
the
to
staff we
Scottsdale and
have.
get academics,
Right,
but
but
you
I'm saying,
can't
as
get
the kids drop, the staffing can't stay the same. And that's what we have to address moving forward, is we can't live like that any longer.
Which I'll be excited to see the strategies to boost enrollment on the agenda, and I
Yeah.
hope it comes up before we make
Sure.
a budget cut, because in the end, I think that's gotta be part of the, you know, if we're losing money because we're losing kids, we need to find out how we can get our kids
Right,
back.
but remember though, these are losses to graduation. That number
Not
doesn't.
always.
I know it's not always, but what I'm saying is that's the shift. For every kid we lose, we bring someone in. I mean, you look at the numbers throughout the year, if you take all the kids who've left and all the kids who've come in, it's probably pretty close to even. I've always said, the thing that we gotta figure out is how do you not have any of them leave and keep bringing the kids in, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of it is jobs change, people move, and that is a big factor here. It really is. The moving of families in and out of Fountain Hills is a big factor. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, so one of the other things that I'd like to see before we make a decision on the budget cut is, and I've asked for it before, is more of a simple breakdown of accounts,
Yeah.
the category,
Yeah,
like if
it'll all be-
it's utilities,
yes.
and according to sites. Because one of the things I would like to see is, I love that we have our own preschool and I like that we're full, but how does the cost equal out with the building? Because like I said, when I was first starting to listen to board meetings, John Flynn made it sound like McDowell Mountain was the most costly building of ours. And so now that we just have our, I need to old McDowell Mountain, now that we just have our preschool there, is the cost evening out?
Well, I mean, I will say that, yes, because there are, 25, 30 classrooms that are not being maintained at all. They're in hibernation mode, they're just sitting there. Now, SRP and some of those things I'll have to look at, because some of those are interconnected. But the bottom line is, then this number we're talking about of lost kids would be worse if we didn't have a preschool.
Yeah, I'm just asking for the
Yeah,
overall.
I agree, and I will get that, and we'll give you a breakdown of what these budget reductions will save us, and how that factors into the overall budget, so you'll have that to take a look at.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I should need to be more clear. I won't accept just tiers of budget cuts. What I would like to see is, and the comment that Kim read at the beginning by Matt Gress kind of clarified, because in the end, we don't do the how things are done, but we are supposed to kind of determine
Yes.
where and how these things are spent. And to me, and I'm coming at this from a business perspective, the things that I would cut are things like programs, payments to the associations like ASBA, the Vail School District, which I know Beyond Textbooks has helped, but is there alternatives? Because I know we pay a lot of money to Vail School District. And so to me, or like educational services and educational networks.
Not all those are M&O though. See, that's the factor.
I
Yeah.
understand, but the more that we free up in capital, and I know our capital is healthy, and if we
Yeah.
replace some of these terrible air conditioning units that are constantly draining our M&O budget, we would see a reduction in our M&O expenditures.
Yes, and I think you're going to be able to do that with the land sale very quickly. As soon as it's done, that will help a ton. I don't disagree with that.
I'm just saying I'd like to
But
see
what I'm
these
gonna give
before
you
we
this
start-
time, I'm gonna give you a plan, and you're gonna give us feedback. That's what we're gonna
Yes,
come back with.
before we start
Yeah.
cutting the positions, because I think that, I mean, in the end, if we need to cut those, we need to cut those.
Sure.
But I would look at cutting what I would call extras, because in the end, we rely on our teachers to teach the curriculum. And it used to be teachers would make their, the curriculum, the lesson plans, and they did a lot of that on their own. And I understand that we're paying these companies to do some of that, including Beyond Textbooks. So in my mind, I would think that the teachers would probably feel similar. I would rather the money go to the people and the teachers that can do that instead of a company that maybe does it for
Yeah,
us.
I hear what you're saying, but you also have to, when you do this, you have to maintain the excellence we've had and the status that we've created here, and you have to factor that in too, right? And so what you try to get out of this is the least impact to the kids, so the kids aren't going around, man, this is really noticeable. The hope is that, a second grader goes, this is my second grade class, right? Instead of 18, there's 25 in there, all right? It's not noticeable. What would be noticeable is if you cut, say, the ASU program or the AP Capstone program or something that is a draw for these kids, or something that they can do that puts them in a position that other schools
Absolutely, I
can't do.
understand that.
So when you talk about, not paying some membership dues and stuff like that, yes, I get every dollar adds up and the numbers grow, but we're talking about, we can't fundamentally continue to have those class sizes where they're at with the budget continuously reducing, and if the M&O override if you choose not to go for it, you're talking about what we have to do this year times that and another half down the road in 3 years. So it could be really, really challenging. You're talking about, at that point, do we need to close the school?
Yes,
Yeah.
I
Sure.
understand that, but, and I love when you did things like you cut the one-to-one, give a Chromebook to every kindergartner. To me, that was insane. I never did that for I didn't take the
We cut the
Chromebook for my
PLP in
daughter.
elementary school,
Yeah,
first
and
thing
you
I
cut
did.
some extras that we didn't need and saved us a lot of money, and so I'd like to see some more of that, and then I'll again.
We've
say
done a
that
lot of
when-
that, though, that's the
when-
problem.
Well, if we get total numbers for
Yeah.
how much we've spent with companies like Climatech, Valor, and Dakin, I bet we could afford a chiller with that money. And that's my thought process, is if we could cut out all of those nickel and dime, which they're not nickel and dime, it's 3,000 here, 5,000 here.
I understand that, but remember, the last time that Valor was here, you had shared you wanted to go into a contract with them because of how good their service was, and we wanted to continue to do
I
that.
asked if the contract came with discounts.
Yeah, so I'm
and
saying they're a
things like
necessity,
that.
unfortunately. Now,
Yeah.
we've cut our maintenance staff back last year. We cut it back quite a bit. And so there's not a lot left to cut there. I mean, there really is not. And same with landscaping, because if we don't landscape, we hear from the neighbors of all the sites all the time about how the schools look. Those departments are really as bare as they can be at this point. There's nothing left to cut there. We cut out the night crew last year. The teachers have felt that effect this year. Like I said, it's down to this year, it'll be transportation, classroom sizes, some administration, and also possibly some smaller things I just don't have off the top of my head, but we'll put them all in that plan for you, okay?
Okay.
Yes, Chris?
I'm good, it works still. I just want to kind of piggyback on some of this. I love Fountain Hills, love Dr. J, I love working for him. I've done nothing but look at these numbers since July 1st. And I've also, upon looking at them, these numbers, I'd be happy to show all of you. I've gotten second opinions, third opinions, fourth opinions. When we talk about cutting beyond textbooks or whatever, it's not even making a dent in what we have to do here. So you talk about chillers.
What's
Sure.
the total amount we pay to be on textbooks every year?
I would
So I believe
say,
the contract is like 14,000?
yeah, it's somewhere around there.
So I know it's not a lot, but that's what
But-
I'm saying,
but
is like
it's-
these small
yeah,
weeks, in the
I-
end, like if you have a household budget,
Sure.
you stop buying coffee if you
Yeah.
need to go out for a loan every
Yeah,
week.
you're
So-
welcome to cut, if you guys want to cut it's on the table. Like I said, everything is on the table.
I would just like to see hard and fast
That-
numbers
that-
tied to these things, so that in the
Sure.
end, we're not just cutting teachers, when maybe there are teachers that would prefer to pick up their room at the end of the day and make lessons plans instead of.
That's totally fine. But what I'm
resources.
saying is that you gotta, I'm just saying though, when you do that, say BT got cut, right? And all of a sudden now, we can't use those materials anymore. Those are theirs, they're copyrighted, we're done. I just worry about what does the end result look like then for our academics and for the growth that we have, because it didn't happen, I just want to be very clear. I was the one who brought this here in 2016. Since it's been here, that high school, and that was where we started, and it's been there since, every cycle since has gotten an A but one, and that was the COVID year.
Do you attribute that to, because every time I ask what Beyond Textbook is that it's a bank of resources, and it's a map of the standards, which the state puts out, a map of the standards, and this just categorizes the resources under those standards. So you can go to the standard and say, what am I supposed to teach this for how long? Here's all the resources, here's lesson plans, here's worksheets.
I'd be welcome to show you, Jessica, I know
guess
did
my-
in the past,
my-
I could do that for you.
My questions are, we just expended more money for new curriculum, but that kind of doubles with Beyond Textbooks, because in the end, Sam Brooks said, well, we have textbooks, we just don't have worksheets. So then do we need to buy a whole new curriculum that comes with new worksheets, or can we buy new workbooks? Or can we use Beyond Textbooks with
Yeah,
the textbooks we have
and
in place?
these are capital purchases, so if you start using capital to fund people, then you're going to still be in a hole, because now you have nothing to show for that capital. You have no resources, no new products that need to be purchased. Like, for example, we have Chromebooks that are now 3-4 years old, they're starting to break. We have state testing coming up, so we gotta make sure they work and they're ready to go for that. If you start using capital to fund people over time, you're gonna still run out, and you're going to have nothing then to show for that money that is designed to go to replenish things like technology and resources and teaching materials and software programs and things like that they need. So I don't disagree with you, Madison, at all, that we can look at cutting other things. I understand that. But what we're talking about here is you have an M&O budget that you're talking about. Some of these classes are so small, especially at the high school, that you can't live like that forever. Like, you got to start looking at, we have to make those reductions.
Well, and I do take comfort in the fact that class sizes wasn't a thing for the community, and it wasn't a thing for the teachers. When I remember when the meet and confer came back, I think class sizes was like 9th on the list of priorities.
And class size on effect size, when you look at research, is it nice to have small class sizes? Yes. Is there benefits to it? Of course. Is it for teachers who are overwhelmed and fatigued and all that? Yes, that helps a ton when you have 100 papers to grade versus 200 papers to grade. We all understand that. But when you look at the achievement levels of an amazing teacher, whether they have 25 or they have 30, I'm confident they're still going to do well because that teacher is amazing. We just have to look at the fact that last year, remember, teacher reductions was off the table. So we did what you asked us to do. What I'm saying is this year, you can't keep doing that, or else you're going to have a problem down the road, okay? So I want to start now so that we can be in a safe place and we can be in a good spot for the future. It's going to help a ton when this land sale money comes in. It's going to relieve a lot, because then you could start saying, okay, well, we'd like to have, let's say we want to bring back a position that we had to cut. Maybe it can't be the same person, but that position. Well, now when you have $10 million in an account for chillers and air conditioners and roof repairs and anything else that comes up, yes, that will help. And that's what I was sharing when we went out and talked about bond and override stuff, is that when you reduce the maintenance costs, that frees up M&O money that can be used for teachers. When you don't have that money available, it makes it harder. So when I was here as a principal, there was a $13 million bond on the books. There was a maintenance and operations override, and there was a capital override. So the administration at that time had a lot of different pots to pull from. I don't have any of those. And in a year from now, if that M&O override does not pass, I'll have zero of those pots to draw from anymore. So you have to start now making those reductions. The teachers understand. Like, I've met with all of them and told them that, that this is unfortunate, but this is the reality. And I'm sure they're disappointed, and I'm sure it's hard to hear, but I've not had anyone come to me yet and say, like, upset about it, or they understand. I mean, in fact, when the high school, middle school, when we got done, they actually clapped for I think the honesty and the sincerity we brought to the table of, this is just a reality, guys. It is what it is. We got to move past it. Okay? So we'll bring you this time around a plan. And then you can say, this we don't like, this we like, this we don't like, instead of tiers like last time. Because I was trying to give you guys options.
And kind of overall numbers, even of the things that we're not necessarily planning to cut. Like I said, it would be interesting to see how much we've paid Bel Air out of M&O funds over this last year versus how much we would pay for.
I totally understand that, but if Juan says to me, Kane, if this doesn't get repaired, McDowell Mountain will be closed all week, I don't have an option.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to go back because we don't
Sure.
rehash the past,
Yeah,
but
I
in the
understand.
end, we've had budget money for the planetarium, for cameras, for a football field, for more camera upgrades. We have budgets for these things that in the end, maybe we could say,
I totally understand, but those are capital, so if
which would be a chiller. A chiller would be a capital
I-
cost.
yes.
And so again, if we could cut out 200, 300,000 of M&O costs because of leaky, bad chillers and inefficient
But right now,
systems.
but I'm telling you, we already looked at the the last time Bel Air was out here, they said our chillers at the high school look good, okay? And they said to replace the whole system was not even worth discussing because it wouldn't have mattered. It was gonna be in the millions of dollars. So the only area that we look at that could have a problem down the road is McDowell Mountain. We have some reserve money for that if that happens, okay? But remember, the goal was to make a run on rebranding and trying to bring kids in and restore the excellence of this district, okay? And that was what we tried to do in the last 3 years. And I feel like every area we've hit on except for bringing in hundreds of kids, okay? And I feel bad about it. I tell people all the time, I feel like I've done everything I can and it's just something I can't crack. But everything else, I think we've done. And so we went for it, we didn't get that, okay? But in the end, the kids have a great place, they have a wonderful learning environment. And even if you did say, okay, we take that money and put it towards, people, then it's gonna run out again and you still don't have anything to show for it. Because now that money's gone too, because it's going to salaries that we can't no longer afford.
No, I guess
Yeah.
again, my point with that is not that we shouldn't have done those things, but, I loved the idea of the, aquarium, and that was around 200,000 for the library versus what we ended up doing, which was a lot closer to 600,000.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, we're the board and we have to approve a budget cut, and last time we were basically just given, these are the options, and we didn't really get to look at it and say, well, maybe we would cut this instead.
But we also took feedback and we didn't get any of that feedback.
Which the budget team, is it an official committee or is?
It's a superintendent committee.
Okay, can the board please be invited to those meetings as
Yeah,
well?
you can sit, yeah, that's fine.
And I do want to, before I end, I do want to thank you for your creativity with the EVIT schedule. I know there might be some negative feedback for that, but in the end.
Zero.
I love that, we're
So far.
still, I love that we're still offering something neat like that not every school does, but we're also trying to make it work within what we can make work, as well as the creativity with the bus routes. Again, people don't have to take us up on our offer to drive their kids to school if they're uncomfortable with K-12.
But we have to also
We're gonna provide what
focus,
we can.
we really need to focus, and this is one of the things I say a lot in my role as the leader of this district is, let's focus on the solution, okay? So we can sit and go back to the past forever, right? Like, even this building, was this building needed, right? I mean, I don't think so, but it's here. So we can't go back and second guess everything that's happened over and over and over again. We have to focus on the solution to the problem and the reality of our situation. And the reality is that we went after a rebrand and tried to do everything we could, bring some energy, bring some new programs, hope it would make a difference. And in the end, it didn't matter. The seniors and the kindergartners are just never going to add up, it looks like, at least for the time being. And so now we have to adjust our spending, just like you talk about a budget all the time. So if you're getting less hours at work, you're going to have to adjust. And we have to adjust as well so that we're in a good space for the future. And then eventually at the next meeting, we'll put on the agenda to talk about the M&O override, okay?
One last thing. When it comes to asking for another override, I would say that our community will probably be a lot more receptive when they've seen the diligence that we've taken to try and be creative with how we do spend our money. Things like you getting that
SFB with the roofs.
intercom covered with a grant.
Yeah.
Things like that will reinforce the confidence that our community
And
has.
hopefully our audit coming is going to be better. I've
Yeah.
heard it looks good, so
in the way that
better.
we're spending,
I don't
so-
say good, but better.
I would say that I think things are looking up for even something like an M&O override. But the main reason that I feel that we need to take that stewardship very seriously is because we had a discussion a while ago about the funding per pupil. And there was some confusion about that. And I looked it up after that meeting. And based on the spending of public school districts, the average dollar amount per public ed student is $15,000 in the state of Arizona. And so I think
I can tell you that when you.
it's considering all funding.
You're taking high-cost children in SPED and all the weights. I can tell you, if we put 15,000 per our kids in that number, I wouldn't be talking today about budget cuts.
Well, But we do have a very healthy budget for being so small. We're not smaller than other districts of comparable size. Our budget's gonna be similar. And so what I'm saying is when we come out to our community and we have done well with the money that's been given us,
Hope so.
that's when we can say, listen, we want an M&O override for these reasons. We've done this, we've done this.
Well, it's gonna be
This is what
salaries,
we're
it's
trying to
not,
do.
it's not items, okay, so that's the difference.
Yeah.
But, again, I wanna go into the past, but everything is interconnected, you brought that up yourself, right? So, when you have pots of money, you can be somewhat creative with that to try to alleviate some problems. We don't have any pots really left, like, we're down to just what the bare, okay? And that's okay, I've not complained about it at all. I've never said a word about how the outcomes of any of those things happen. I've just said, this is the challenge, we'll take it, and we'll work hard for it, and that's what we've done. And so, I just have not been able to figure out how to get more kids into Fountain Hill schools. I've tried everything I can try, and I'm not saying I'm giving up. I'm still working on it, okay? I come up with crazy ideas all the time. But none of them are yielding hundreds of children, and I don't think it's just us. I think that's everywhere.
Absolutely.
But when you see, and we're going to give you a copy of these student counts in these classrooms, and I think you're going to say, yes, it makes sense to make some reductions there because this is not sustainable. And again, we love all these people, we don't want to do this, and it's good for the community. We value small class size, and it's been a part of who we are in our DNA for forever.
Yeah.
Okay, but last year when we were asked to not do that, we could only really get to a number we could get to last year without taking out real key people, like, do you have a superintendent? Right? Do you have a finance director? Do you have these key positions? That's for you guys to decide, right? We have 1,100 students. So we got to look at those factors in and say, but I've seen a path with the county today of where I think we can get to a good number without it being overly noticeable. It's going to be noticeable no matter what, but not to the point where people are like, this is unbearable. I don't see that happening. I think it can be done at a very high level, and people will be still happy with the product we're putting out there.
Well, I think people will be really happy with us being responsible, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you looking at the numbers and using that discernment, because I know it's hard no matter
Sure.
where you make the cuts, you always feel it, especially
Yeah.
if it's coffee.
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
Any other questions?
I do have questions, but I want to see if anyone else does first.
No.
Leanna, no.
No, I just want to say that it'll help when we meet with Chris to understand where the money comes from M&O, what it pays, where the money comes from the others. We can cut out not having coffee, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be able to buy
Sure.
an air conditioner for my house because I stopped drinking coffee at Starbucks. So right now we have to fix what we have, and hopefully, if the state ever gets money to give us to fix the roads, that will really be helpful.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
And I don't drink coffee.
A couple things, a couple things I just want to say. I am focused on student outcomes. I think we all are and should be. And so as we're looking at things to cut, I want to always keep that balance in mind. I've seen programs like, the AP classes and all of that. I mean, that's benefited my family, my older son. I've seen what that can do. And he also was going to it was a charter public school. So I just want to express that. So when I think about areas where we could make budget cuts, right? I think about, you mentioned class sizes, and that some of the class sizes are actually quite small due to a variety of reasons, trimester, all of those things. And so I think of things like, you reach a point when a class size is so small that it doesn't benefit the students.
I agree.
Right? They have no peer pressure happening. They feel less involved in the class. Like there's less discussion that can happen. So you can reach class sizes that are too small.
I agree with you.
The other thing I'd like to point out is all of the other school districts around us are going to be making reductions and cuts, which means their already larger class sizes are going to get larger.
Yes.
And by our class sizes getting slightly larger as well, we're still going to have that gap.
Agreed.
So those are a couple things I wanted to point out.
Those are very, very good points, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. I wonder if there is opportunity, because the middle school and high school are close and on the same campus, let's call it, if when you guys are looking at these cuts, if there's an opportunity to take a high school teacher, and you said the middle school is pretty slim in their staffing, right? So is there an opportunity to have a teacher that does middle school, high school?
Yeah, it's happening now. There's more than people think. We have English, PE, and math already are happening where high school teachers are teaching middle school classes this year alone. So yes, I think the school will eventually morph into one. I'm just being honest with you, because as the high school gets down to 200, 250 kids, which is the prediction of the future, and the middle school's at 150 or something like that, it's going to be one school. It'll be a 6-12 school. And those are actually being built now. Maybe not 6, more like 7-12.
Yeah, 7-12.
But there's a possibility if you wanted to, in that time frame, move 6th grade back to the elementary school and have a 7-12 high school. That's a possibility. It wouldn't be hard to do. There's room. So yes, I agree. There's definitely opportunity to share staff, which might be able to save a few people from having to be considered to be cut. Yes.
And then the other thing, and I think you and I have talked about this before, is I think there's an opportunity in the elementary school to do shared grades.
Yeah.
So, I saw this happen a lot in California, and my older son benefited from it quite a bit, actually, and I was very against it when he first got put into, I think it was like a K1 or a first, second combo class. I was horrified, and it was fantastic for him.
Yeah. We are looking at several models right now. We have someone volunteering with us to help us with some scheduling, and Val Reichler is going to start, talking with staff about what model they feel like they would feel the best with. But yes, team teaching K1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is definitely something we're looking at. And we already kind of do that in 5th grade now. And they've been doing that for 2 years, and we'll see what the results look like this year with their ASA scores. But yes, I agree that there are definitely opportunities to do that.
Okay.
And that will lower the class size, because now you're taking 110 kindergarten and first graders, and you're dividing them up into 4 teachers instead of, if you were to cut one of each grade level, you're down to 4 for 110. Those numbers are more realistic than having 27, 28. It helps a little bit, but you can also be creative in your scheduling, where when they go to specials or they go to the library or they go somewhere else, and they do use the library daily. Every class, I don't know if every class goes daily, but they go a lot. So that could be another space to reduce some size. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then I wanted to focus a little bit back on the preschool. I mean, you talked about there might be an opportunity to raise the tuition a little bit there. I don't think that's going to make a huge difference, right? But I guess I would love to see the numbers of how many of those kids are actually funneling and landing in our kindergarten.
Denise Matu says that.
Yeah, so that way we can see kind of what ROI are we getting out of having a preschool. And then the other thing I would love to understand is, once we understand the cost, because I understand most of the building is shut down, it's in hibernation, all of that. But once we understand the costs of maintaining that building at the level that we're maintaining it, is there any cost savings? Is there any possibility of bringing the preschool to the elementary school? And can we be creative about that? I understand those kids often need a different type of bathroom and things like that. But is there, can you use a portable building that has bathrooms that are of, that way?
Yeah, I think there's some very strict licensing. So when I came, there was a proposal to look at putting 2 classrooms over at the McDowell Mountain, the new McDowell, And the cost of that bathroom renovation was massive. I mean, it was a big, big number. And it would have got us 2 classrooms, so you're talking 26 maybe, and that's not even 26? If you had 2 classrooms, how many can you get in preschool, 13?
30,
In a preschool class?
15 in each.
Yeah, so 15, so we've been hovering close to 50 at the other site, and the hope is that they go to kindergarten, because once they go to kindergarten and you keep them, that investment comes through there, obviously. So the problem with that site is that, one, there's not a lot of empty space over there already as it is, so that's one issue.
Right.
And two, the one area that is a little bit, I guess, probably the only area that's not used very well is the music room, because we haven't ever been able to get any music applicants for the last few years. But outside of that, the school's pretty full, and it's a pretty bustling place. So we looked at it at the time, and the board and the committee that looked at that decided to not go in that direction at that time. And I was brand new coming in at that time. So we can do a cost analysis of all that over the preschool, but the bottom line is, it's like, you know, when you like, say if you don't offer kindergarten, right? Because, you know, we're required to offer first grade on. So if you did that, then the kids are going to kindergarten so much you're never getting them back. And that's the worry, is if you go to a preschool in Scottsdale or Paradise Valley and you make friends, you're probably not coming back. So the preschool has been a success. I know financially we'll have to look at some of the information and give you that. But as far as the school itself and what we're in this for, which is to give kids a great environment, that preschool is one of the best preschools in the state. I mean, it's fantastic what they're doing over there. They're coming in so prepared for kindergarten. They have specials. They have it's a decent cost for families, and it's probably one of our brightest spots in the district. So it's one of those things where does the, like you said, the return on investment, is it worth it when we're seeing these kids go to kindergarten and stay with us? I agree. But we can look at that.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm not advocating getting rid of the preschool at all.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanna
But
see
just
more
understanding,
info.
yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay. I think that was all of my questions.
Okay.
Okay. Any others?
I'll try not to duplicate anything else that's been said, but one of the things that hasn't really come up a little bit is on the tools so that the teachers are more productive. So maybe Beyond Books really pays more for itself than we all know of.
And I believe it does.
Is
I
there a
do.
way to measure the use that we put into that, or?
Yeah, I think you look at before and after, and then the years where it wasn't being utilized, and then when it was. If you look at 2017 to 2020, high school is one of the best in the state. Then for 2 years, it's not used with fidelity at all, and maybe some of the teachers would say that maybe isn't true, but there was a lot of turnover too during that time. It went right back down to our test scores were C rated, and we weren't doing, and then as soon as we put what was working back in, straight to an A, maintain an A, and we're looking at a three-peat here on the A. So I think the data speaks for itself. That would be the least of the things I would look to cut.
And what counts as the perception of the teachers? Do they think it's, whether it's objectively true, what do they think?
Well, I think the 6 through 12, yes, because it was implemented correctly. I think K-5, I think it was not implemented correctly, and that was before my time, and I think it was kind of forced on them, and they have a little bit of, trying to understand it better. I will say that this year they're doing it really well, and their formative tracking and all those things look great. I'm excited to see what their scores come in at. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, without going backwards.
Sure.
Looking at a quality environment for the students, we need a quality environment for the teachers too. So that includes professional development. So as we look at salaries being our biggest expense, that everybody knows is just, we need to keep all of that in mind. It's a whole big environment.
Yeah.
And not look at one little item and say that's what's going to fix it. There are no silver bullets out there. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Thank you.
And I will just say, just very quickly, what Bernie just said was correct. As a former teacher, you need professional development. You need the tools to help you out. And it will help the students for sure, because we're seeing the task force, what a difference it's made in the middle school since they implemented it correctly.
Mhm.
And also, I'm going to say what Kim said, was I've had classes that were really small. They work, but they could be boring as heck. You have to do a project in Spanish, and you have 6 kids in there. It's not the same as the one with 20.
Right.
You know, so there are certain things that I definitely, if we can share teachers, if we can do it, and I've had one of my kids was in a split class, like 3rd, 4th. It wasn't bad. You know, you dread it in the beginning. I've also had Spanish split, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, because you don't have enough enrollment. So that, I think we can.
We're doing some of that in math right now. Barsom is really good at that, about differentiating and doing multiple things at one time. So we'll bring that to you, and then we'll take feedback, and then, like I said, you could use some special sessions if you want to create some more time as we get to March 17th. Okay?
And add one more comment. With the combined classes, right, that Barsima and some of the others are doing, and what I learned with my son is, and I'm not saying they're the holy grail or anything like that, but there's a social aspect to it too, that I think as a parent I didn't realize my son would benefit from. But when he was in a 2-3, he now knew 2nd graders and he knew 3rd graders in the school. And so it made him more bonded with the school environment, and we talk about, you're talking about that pride in your schools, the stickiness, I'll call it stickiness, because in the business world, that's what we call it. We want our customers to be sticky.
Yeah.
And so that's how you make kids sticky, is you not only create a great academic environment, but you create a great social and cultural environment. And sometimes having those combined classes that aren't too small, so they aren't boring, will create that stickiness.
Yeah, I agree, and I think also if you're creative in your staffing too, creative in our scheduling, you may see less behavior issues because kids are moving around more, they're interacting with different adults, not the same one all day. I mean, there's benefits to that too, I see it, but you know, having kids be actively engaged and moving around and working with different adults, I think could be a positive when it comes to some of the behavior stuff that you see since COVID. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks,
All right.
Dr. J.
Yeah,
You're
thank you.
excused.
Yeah, thank you.
We made you stand a long time.
Okay. So future agenda items, we have strategies to boost enrollment, club policies, ESA voucher students in sports, and student outcomes with report cards and proficiency data. And I think the pickleball thing probably needs to be addressed at some point in the near future too, right?
And I'd like to bring one up. I would like us to start a discussion on cell phones in the middle school. I understand they're not really being used in the elementary school. Things are pretty much okay at the high school, but I really think we need to start a discussion about the middle school and cell phones.
Okay.
Okay, that could be part of, well, that's not club policies, other policies. Okay. Any others for future?
Yes. The Golden Eagle Education Foundation does a lot of work with the school, and they're in process, so maybe an update on the scholarship program, mentoring, and on grants to the teachers for classroom expenses.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, any others? It looks like a lot of stuff. Okay, dates of upcoming meetings, February 19th here and March 5th at 6 p.m. And before we adjourn, or after we adjourn, remember there's stuff to sign, so don't all run away. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good night all. Thanks for coming. Okay, signatures.
That's right. Can I go to next in line? I have a caregiving shift.
Yeah, so now which, the one, let's see, 68, accounts payable, that's page 68, so you're not going to do that one, right?
Yeah, just the payroll.
Yeah,
and
just make
minutes.
sure.
Minutes.
Well, it's actually 65, huh?
You don't want to sign after me, Madison, because I signed my whole name.
63, 65.
I'm gonna have to go basically straight.